Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Contra Code. I am Mike the Rat Guy, here with my friend HowardBware.
Hey there.
And it is episode 2. We are in our second of a forecast 315,000 episode run. And we hope that you're joining us after having loved our first episode, Mega Man. And we're going to have a lot more fun today. What have you been up to, Howard?
Oh, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. A little busy with work, a little busy with the kids, just kind of hanging out, playing some video games. For Valentine's Day, my wife got me the new Smash Brothers for the Wii U, which I've been digging. Pretty fun, pretty fun.
Yeah, you were telling me, actually, that you now know, before you actually started getting into it with this recent entry, you were like me, where you didn't really have any idea what you were fucking doing in that game.
Yeah, like we have the one Brawl, I believe it's called, on the GameCube, and then we have, Melee, I think it might be called.
There was one called Melee.
I think that's for the Wii. So we've had those, and I've played those, and I've enjoyed them when I have, 3 or 4 people with me playing them along with me, but I've always been into fighting games since Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, those sorts of things, and I can pretty much always pick up a fighting game and have, a punching chance to, defeat somebody, at least defend myself and be competitive with just the basic moves. That's never been the case with me for Smash Brothers. I've never been able to seem to find, a groove or a rhyme or reason as to why things are happening in that game. And I've realized that I've just been kind of overthinking it. It's really a lot simpler of a game, and when you just kind of sit back and slow down and just kind of decide, I figured it out, actually. I took some time, and I got a groove in a couple of characters, and it's a really fun game when you actually have a game plan going into a match and kind of know what you're trying to do. So I've really been quite enjoying that game, so...
It does really help to actually know what you're doing in a fighting game, that's for sure. I'm sure you remember the days when you and I first tried to play stuff like Street Fighter 2 in the arcades, and we were overconfident, we got our asses handed to us, but, that's part of the learning process.
For a minute.
Yeah, a little bit of a minute.
And we started handing some asses right back after a while.
We certainly did, yeah. We kind of turned that around. I think the odds are a little bit more in our favor over the years.
Sure.
The last time I played, actually the last and only time, now that I think about it, that I ever played Smash Brothers would it have been the one that I played at your house in 2010?
That would have been Melee, I believe. I think Melee's the one on the Wii, the original.
Oh, it was the Wii, wasn't it? Yeah, that sounds right. So. Yeah, I remember having the same experience you did. Several things had thrown me. I didn't understand the health. I guess it's in percentage, right? Like it's not like a life bar or whatever. I'm used to the visual.
Honestly, that's still something I'm not quite sure about. I think the different percentages change. Like if you're fighting, then you get kicked off the platform, which is basically a knockout. I think it kind of goes like that. If you get more knockouts, or if you knock other people out, you get a point for it. And if you get knocked out, you lose a point. So I think after all that's said and done, depending on how many knockouts you've earned and how many times you've been knocked out, whoever has the most points, I believe, is the victor of the match. And if it's close, you kind of go into a sudden death overtime thing where the first person to score a good hit wins the whole thing. So it's pretty fun. I've been going online and playing it too, and I've actually been pretty competitive. I don't win every match, but I usually don't come in last either. So.
Well, anyone who's listening to this right now who's actually good at that game, and there's probably a lot of them.
Oh, I'm sure,
it's a huge, very famous, very popular franchise.
My brother-in-law he travels all over and goes to tournaments. He's very good at that game.
There you go.
Which is actually funny. He stopped at our house to stay overnight once. He had 3 kids with him, and they were all on their way to a Smash Brothers tournament, and they were our house was kind of midway in between, a long drive for them, so we let them stay the night and put them up and fed them for breakfast in the morning and stuff. And I was watching these kids all play, and everything looked the same to me. That game always just looks the same to me. I can never look at it and see who's winning, who's doing what, anything that's going on.
It's just a big clusterfuck.
Yeah, and then one of them did something, and they all erupted in laughter at the same time. So they must have done something significant that would have been, identifiable as something that was, amusing to them. And it just looked the fucking same to me. I had no clue that anything different had happened.
You were the guy in the middle of the room who didn't get the joke that everyone was snickering at. That's such a
I didn't. But you know what? We'll see. Maybe a few more rounds of this, I can be inducted in their exclusive little club.
You can be the one laughing at everybody else. See, that's what I was going to say, is people like your brother, they, anyone who's really good at this series, they're going to hear people like us, me especially, talking about how we don't get it and it's kind of hard to pick up. They're going to be like, those fucking noobs. They're going to think that we're terrible.
These kids aren't like that at all, actually. They're very nice kids.
Oh, if they're on the internet and they play video games, they're exactly like that. You hear that, people, you're horrible.
Well, that's
horrible.
just it. When they're on the internet, they may be like that, but typically people on the internet that act like that don't have that kind of balls to your face. So
Yeah, we saw that firsthand. That's the thing that, unfortunately, a lot of modern gamers now don't get to experience is playing games competitively next to somebody, shoulder to shoulder, in an arcade.
Sure, and that's just it. Then you have to look in their eyes and be an asshole, and it's harder to do because you have empathy for people. You see you've hurt their feelings, and then you feel bad. So you're not just hiding behind a keyboard and a screen. It's a lot easier. It's a lot harder to want to be that cruel to people in real life. So, and fortunately so. Who wants to be that cruel to people? I sure don't. I'd like to, actually.
Exactly. So, having said that, let's move on. Anything in the news?
Yeah, actually. There's a new custom-built Japanese candy cab arcade machine in production. So if you're the kind of guy who likes to have a full arcade machine in your house, but you don't have the space for it, basically this Japanese company called Multi-Game System, they started building the Japanese-style games, which are a little different than like the old wooden casings you're traditionally used to seeing, which a lot of people do build those these days. There's lots of kits you can look at online and figure out how to build your own arcade cabinet. What these guys do, they kind of use like fiberglass molding and stuff like that, like vacuum formed things, and it's like very sleek and plastic and awesome looking. And what they do is they take that Japanese style of an arcade machine and they shrink it down to kind of like a bar top size. So you can have a full arcade machine just kind of sitting on your counter, and it's got the joystick and the controls and all that stuff, and you can get them loaded up with different ones. I was looking at one that had just a bunch of Super Nintendo titles in it, stuff like that. I'm sure you could probably get it with Neo Geo games, which would be awesome. Play some Samurai Showdown, that sort of thing. So if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, you could probably plan on spending close to $900 on it, which is a little out of my price range. But if that's something you're after, I mean, it'd be super cool to have. I'm in the midst of building a movie theater in my basement, and I wouldn't mind having that next to the popcorn machine. That'd be pretty sweet.
I'm actually laughing because, not to delve into your finances publicly here, but I can't help but be amused at somebody who says 900 is out of my price range, but I am building a movie theater in my basement.
Well, you gotta pick and choose. $900 so that I could selfishly sit there and play an arcade machine is one thing. Building a movie theater for my entire family to enjoy for years and years and years is another. So
yeah,
you got.
And to be fair, your movie theater thing is coming along very nicely. It's pretty rad. You've got all the trappings kind of coming together.
Yeah, it'll be cool when it's done.
Very much.
Sure.
Can you customize the games on this thing? Do you know?
Let me see. I'm not sure. It looks like you can kind of pick and choose which ones you're after. It looks like I am honestly not sure how they license these. It doesn't really say. The articles I've read didn't really say. So
yeah, I imagine this is super, super legal, but over in Japan, they can, I don't know, maybe they have like different copyrights over there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Different expirations.
Either. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it can't be too different as far as rights goes. Too different from like those hackneyed devices that you see at mall kiosks whenever you're walking through like whatever Gurney Mills, and you see like some guy hawking like whatever, like the GameTron 62.5, which is not this machine that we use to pick our games. But very similar in design. Yeah, It's got like all those built-in Nintendo games and stuff, and yeah, it seems like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Basically, it's cool. It kind of looks like the joystick looks like almost like a Hori game stick controller quality. It's kind of has like the round ball controller, at least the one I'm looking at. I'm sure there's various ones. They probably have a whole guide where you can pick and choose the type of controller you want and the type of joystick you want and the buttons arrangements and that sort of thing, I would imagine. But
that would be pretty nifty.
Yeah. So Multi-Game System is the brand, and if you're after something like that, that's where I'm sure if you Google that, or I'm sure they have a website. So there you are.
And if they're over there listening to us right now, they should sponsor us for that pleasant shout out
for that nice plug. You anything in the news you find or?
Well, I guess the first thing is game related. Right off the bat, I want to add some information to the first episode. I was talking about, in the Mega Man episode, a dungeon crawling game that was going to have emotional states for your characters.
Kind of artificial intelligence for your characters, kind of that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, right off the bat, I hadn't remembered the name at the time, and I knew it was Dungeon something, which doesn't really describe much, but it was on the tip of my tongue, and I couldn't remember it. It's actually Darkest Dungeon is the name.
Darkest Dungeon. And what platform is that on?
It's for the God. See, now you got me stuck. I actually did not write that down this time. Whenever I research only like the base surface level of information. Just screw all the important stuff for follow up questions.
Right.
Actually, no, I don't know yet because it's actually a Kickstarter project that apparently just went through. Yeah.
So it's not really being geared towards anything besides maybe a computer right now, PC?
Presumably, yeah. I do remember that they said something about how they want to look at, they mentioned the Vita. They said that they want to talk about, maybe putting something on the Vita. They're talking about wanting to design for consoles.
So maybe one of those independent, you can go into the PlayStation Store and download the game for a few bucks.
That might be where they're going. Yeah, at the moment I'm getting impressed.
That would be cool. I'm a PlayStation Plus member, and a lot of those end up free for download for me, so that'd be kind of neat.
It's possible then that someday you might be playing this. It looks interesting enough. I mean, it seems like a cool concept.
If done well, I could see that being a very cool thing.
Sure. I mean, it's a novel idea. I guess I looked more into it, and apparently, like, each of the characters, there's something like 11, 14 characters, and I guess each one has, like, specific, personality attributes. One of them is paranoid. Another one is an alcoholic.
There you go.
Yeah, like, seriously, yeah. So I guess, like, as you go through these dungeons, and the dungeons are procedurally generated, so, they're going to be, like, different each time. I love that kind of concept. That's like an old roguelike type of game that those were known as. And, I mean, it just sounds like a good time. I'm curious to, kind of watch the development of that and see whenever it actually hits.
It would be fun if you could, like, confiscate his booze and just keep it from him and watch him, like, slowly get the shakes and, like, just lose it.
For the sociopathic gamer and all of this.
Just help him kick it. He eventually becomes very grateful for you, helping him overcome his demons and...
Maybe. I mean, I want to guess that it probably won't be that advanced, but I wouldn't know. I mean, it could be.
Sure.
Hard to say. Another thing, minor thing, we talked about it briefly, but I guess you suggested that I bring it up. I actually 100%ed Grand Theft Auto 5 a couple days ago.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, the game came out in, September of 2013, so at this point it's kind of an older game. I mean, it's been out like a year, going on a year and a half.
I've had it for a year now, a little over a year. I got it last Christmas, and I would like to point out that I still haven't finished the story mode, so... I got very wrapped up playing online, and I've put probably hundreds of hours in online just playing and having a good time with you and a few other people, but that's just it. I have time to play it, and I can either choose to play by myself or play online with a few friends. It's always fun to go online with a few friends and play, so... Yeah,
definitely.
I spent more of my time doing that.
I mean, that's logical. At some point, I still maintain that you should...
and I'm sure I will.
Yeah, so I mean, 100%ing it mercifully does not require completing every single objective in the entire game at, like, perfect capacity. I mean, because that would be ridiculous. There's all kinds of shooting range challenges and stunt jumps and races, and a lot of that stuff I'm just not interested in or good at. Yeah, so I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of activities in that game, side activities. I mean, there's probably legitimately, I'd say, like, with the actual storyline missions and everything else, there's probably... like 160, 170 things to do, I think, like different activities, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very robust game, and again, fortunately, they don't require you to do all of that for 100%, which is
odd
kind of misleading. Yeah, right.
It kind of seems like as much detail as they Rockstar puts into that game, where like you break a window and you can hear the guy walking like on the glass by it, or even if you shut a car off, you can kind of hear the engine like making those little ticking noises and like winding down and things like that. You'd think they'd be pretty keen on the definition of 100%. I mean, why the fuck would you have all these things and be like, okay, I guess, close enough. Close enough, you got 100%, fuck it. It's like a teacher that just feels bad that you're kind of stupid.
I'm feeling really good about my 100%.
Yeah, which I know you've completed far more than I'll ever complete in that game. But I mean, still, again, 100% seems like you should really be everything.
Well, to be fair, for the more obsessive gamers who, I mean, kind of pot calling the kettle black, I mean, I just 100% of the game. For people who are even more obsessed than I am as far as finishing those little things and getting those little numbers, you actually get a special trophy and or achievement, depending on which system you're playing on, when you do, in fact, like, I think, complete every single thing. Like, I think when you gold medal everything and whatever else, you do get, like, some kind of special rare, you've done it all.
For those overachievers that give you the proverbial 110%, they get, like, the extra trophy.
Indeed. Yeah, they get the special award. With me, it's like, fuck it, I don't care. The game said that I 100%ed, so I'm done. Sure. And some of those achievements, I mean, I, for the most part, enjoyed myself. Most of them are not too, I guess, quote, difficult, but some of them are just ridiculously time consuming. Like finding, I mean, two of them, just for two of the mere things they have to have you finish to get this 100%, you have to collect, for each of these two, you have to collect 50 items that are scattered around the map. You have to find and walk over 100 different things just for two of these requirements. Jeez. And my God, that alone, that's like a fucking...
Didn't you say you had to do like a foot race that took you like 28 minutes or something like that?
That was the other thing I was going to mention. Yeah, you have to complete triathlons, and there are several in the game, and the first few racing, they're foot races, and you can also like swim and bike race, whatever, it depends on the mission. It basically has your character going through, these laborious exercises. And, they're not too bad at first, because most of them are like little 5-minute segments or whatever. They're fun, whatever, they're cool, they're not too hard. But then when I stumbled onto this last final triathlon that I hadn't yet completed, I thought it was going to be the same as I just described. But as I'm going through like my 7th or 8th straight minute of swimming with my character, and to swim, that's tapping the X button, just like repeatedly. To make a character swim, it's tap, 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 tap. Right. So I mean, and yeah, after like 7 or 8 minutes of this, I paused the game and I'm like, when is this going to fucking end?
Let me ask you a question. When you're in the middle of this triathlon and you jump into the water, does the guy pull your diving knife out immediately?
You know what? That's actually a valid question. Normally in the game he would, but if I recall correctly, he does not, because in the mission weapons are disabled. I think. I actually don't really remember enough about it.
I've always found that completely stupid.
And the weapon is the knife is so ineffectual too. You can get killed by a shark in that game, and if you can stab one and defend yourself successfully, I've never done it, so I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I'm 8 minutes in, like legitimately 7 or 8 minutes into the swimming race. I pause the game, look online, and that's when I find other people saying, "Oh man, have you ever completed that half-hour-long triathlon?" And I was like, "What the fuck?" Like they're serious. This is actually a half-hour fucking long. Long story short, I completed it, and did I even tell you that I fucked it up the first time? I didn't. Oh my God, I can't believe I left this out. I confirmed online 28 to 30 minutes. I mean, and that's straight up pressing the X button, tap, 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 tap the entire time. Sit there and do something that mundane for 28 minutes and tell me you don't feel like an invalid when you're done. Waste of life. But yeah, okay, so I'm doing this. I'm literally, I've gone through the whole 27, 28 minutes long. I've completed the swimming. I've completed the 12-minute long bike segment. I'm on the last leg. I'm running on foot towards the finish line. Again, 27, 28 minutes into this, the finish line is within reach. I tap I think it's I can't remember, off the top of my head without having the controller in hand. I think it's the left stick that shows me the, you know what I did? I pressed down on the directional pad to enlarge the mini map so I could see where the other characters were behind me, just out of curiosity, just to see, I wonder how far away they are before I'm actually finishing this race. Did I finish, was it a close tie? Were they like a ways behind me? Let's check. When I press down on the map to enlarge it, I slip just to enough, like 0.3 degrees with my thumb to tap the right button on the control pad. And little did I know, there's a little tiny message for like a second at the beginning of this race that says, "Oh, by the way, if you tap right, you can exit the race." How convenient. So I accidentally tapped it after 27 minutes, and with the finish line of like 10 feet away from my character, I accidentally quit the fucking race.
Jeez.
27, 28 minutes of tapping the X button just for nothing. Long story short, I like dutifully just said fuck the world and then did it again and cried myself to sleep.
There you go.
Yeah. So that was my adventure.
Oh, there you go.
All right, and the Oscars are coming up this weekend. You watch the Oscars?
I do here and there. I like the Oscars. Typically when things are nominated, they're good. I'm not a big fan. I think it's a lot of politicking, a lot of like glad-handed, like, oh, it's my turn. I finally, deserve. I don't think there's so many like really well developed and sculpted like horror movies per se that never get a fucking Oscar nod. There's really just genius fucking comedies that just never get nominated because it's a comedy. Because it's what, a comedy can't be the best fucking picture that year.
Right.
I just I like it. Don't get me wrong. I do like the Oscars. I don't want to poo-poo it, but to me, I don't know, like a Ghost got a fucking Oscar. So,
And do you know what else was nominated that year? I'm sorry, not even nominated. Do you know what won that year?
What won Best Picture that year?
Dances with Wolves.
See? Case in point. Go ahead.
Do you know what Dances with Wolves beat that year?
Oh, fuck. What year was that?
1990.
Was it Goodfellas?
Yeah, it was Goodfellas, man.
Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck Kevin Costner and a chick from what time period with how much fucking hairspray? Fucking just gah. All right, I won't harp on it. I know you love that movie.
I do.
And I hate that movie. I don't even hate it. I tried to watch it again, man. I really did. Not too long ago, I revisited Dances with Wolves, and it's just... It's everything about, like, what that movie should be is right up my alley, and I can't stand that movie.
I mean, fair enough. That movie consistently shows up on, like, the worst movies to ever win Best Picture lists. And of course, that bums me out because I do love it. I always have. But, I mean, fair enough. If people don't like it, I can see why, I guess.
There's a lot wrong with it.
Well, I mean, it's true that, I'd be lying if I said that, the Oscars weren't just, Hollywood patting itself on the back. And it gets a lot of shit for that. Some of it is, I think, a little bit overboard. I mean, every awards show for every industry is just that industry patting itself on the back.
Sure.
I mean, the Oscars are not rare in that. I'm sorry, not unique in that regard. But, I mean, it's true. It usually is more politics than art. For example, George C. Scott, he won for Patton in 1970. And though I'm paraphrasing the exact quote, he said something like, "The Oscars are a meat parade, and I don't want any part in it."
There you go. Rest in peace, George C. Scott, the wise, wise man.
To each their own. I can see where he's coming from. This year we have eight nominees for Best Picture, up from the 5 that we used to have, up until The Dark Knight was not nominated, which pissed everybody off. So the next year, though it may not be directly related, most people think...
So instead of giving a well-crafted, pretty much close to perfect fucking movie just because it's a comic book movie, a rightful spot amongst the 5, we'll just expand the nomination so we can stop pissing a few people off and throw them a frickin' little backhanded bone. Yeah.
See, again, more of the politicking.
Exactly.
This happened in 2008, and lo and behold, in 2009, that was the first year that they opened up the nominees to, 1 million nominees. And they did not explicitly say that it was because of The Dark Knight, but, I mean, everybody knew. I mean, so many people bitched about the fact that movie was nominated for a bunch of awards that year, but not Best Picture. And, yes, people got pissed. And now they've just kind of, instead of just giving nominating 5 movies, they nominate anywhere between 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I don't know. To me, that kind of lessens the prestige.
Do they just nominate every movie they find worthy, or do they have an actual number? Because you know what? Maybe if they feel okay, these are worthy and there's 6 this year, or these are worthy and there's only 3 this year. These are the only 3 that are worth it. I could get behind that.
Well, for the longest time, since I don't know the exact year, but originally back in the 20s, the late 20s when the Oscars first began, it actually has been going on that long. They used to give pretty much any number. Like they'd have a year that was maybe I think 3 to 4. Some years would be 7 or 8, like it is now. But for the longest time, I'm guessing maybe at least probably 40 to 50 years, maybe more, maybe less, they have had the default 5.
Okay.
But but in 2009, starting in 2009,
because if there's not 5, they shouldn't just throw Ghost in because we need a 5th fucking movie.
I liked Ghost.
I know. I didn't hate Ghost like I hated Dances with Wolves. It is what it is, but it's not a fucking Oscar-worthy movie.
Oh man, poor Ghost, poor Dances with Wolves.
Poor Patrick Swayze.
Oh, seriously, he seemed like a nice dude.
He did seem like a nice dude.
I don't know. They do not. I do kind of like it. It's sort of half and half now. While they've arbitrarily expanded the amount of nominees to a higher number, they do not stick to that number arbitrarily every year. I think one year there was 9 or 10. Again, this year there's 8. So they do kind of waffle up and down, I guess, based on how many truly deserving, presumably they actually think this truly deserving movies pop up every year.
Yeah, because it seems like if there's not 5 worthy, they shouldn't try to make 5.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know if there's ever been a year to where there weren't 5 truly great movies, but that's totally subjective.
Well, what are the 8 this year?
The 8 this year are let's see, I've got a list in front of me. The first is controversial American Sniper.
Okay, I have not seen it. I don't know what to think. I kind of feel like movies like that, these wartime movies, these American hero movies, seem like a lot of propaganda with everything that's going on these days. I don't know that it necessarily is, but it's what it always feels like to me. I know I can get behind. I like Clint Eastwood a lot. He doesn't seem like the type of guy who would do that. I don't know. We'll see.
It's been really politicized.
I'm sure I'll see the movie. I'll probably wait for.
Oh, sure. It looks good. It seems like it is good. As far as when I last checked, based on the critical consensus anyway, it is the worst reviewed of the nominees this year.
Okay.
It's supposedly the consensus seems to be, depending on who you ask, of course, but the general consensus seems to be it's good, it's well acted. It's a solid movie. However, it's supposed to dwell on the effects of what this guy goes through, but instead it kind of just focuses on the action and doesn't really get into his background or the actual effects of, it's more or less kind of like a dramatized, glorified action movie, and that, disappointed a lot of people. It wasn't as deep as it purported to be, according to them. Yeah.
Okay, number 2.
Next on the list, we've got Birdman. Quote, Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance.
It's about the life story of Coco Beware?
It is. Coco Beware, doing the bird. Wrestling fans will love us, and everybody else will be like, "Shut the fuck up."
Who the fuck's Coco Beware? If you don't know who Coco Beware is, Google it. All right.
Indeed,
what's Birdman about?
Birdman is. I wanted to like this movie. Birdman is Michael Keaton, who I love.
Okay.
Basically, it's a fiction movie, but it's based, in part on what he actually went through in real life. It's basically an actor.
You've seen this movie?
I have. I watched it a little bit before the hype got really huge for it. I heard that it was good, so I checked it out because I thought it sounded compelling. Yeah, I'll get into that in a minute. It's Michael Keaton has the context of the movie. Michael Keaton plays an actor who is famous for having the superhero character Birdman. He was very famous, very successful as this character, but once that kind of died down, his career kind of ended. He became kind of like a nobody, and the movie is him trying to put on a play, a Broadway play, and I'm sorry, not Broadway, but he's trying to put on a play and be taken seriously as an actor.
Okay.
And in the midst of trying to put this together, put this play together, all kinds of things are going wrong. His daughter's, getting into drugs. His prima donna actor is causing trouble, and he's kind of haunted with this voice in his head of this Birdman character, sort of like urging him to quit taking himself so seriously and just accept the fact that he's a washed-up hack. Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting premise. I wanted to like it, but I found the movie to be just like ridiculously dull and very artsy-fartsy pretentious. It goes back and forth between, real and dream. It's the movie fucking starts with Michael Keaton levitating. I swear to God. The first shot in the movie is Michael Keaton.
Or is he having like an out-of-body experience?
We don't know because art.
Okay.
I'm serious.
Right.
There's a jazz soundtrack, and fair enough if you like jazz. I most certainly do not. But whatever, I can handle the. And I'm sure a lot of people would dig that. But like, there's a jazz soundtrack just omnipresently, just just going on and on throughout like the first fucking half hour of the movie as characters just talk and walk around and talk and walk around, and just the movie just it just struck me as way too pretentious, super overrated. Yeah, not my cup of tea. I thought that the ending was a cop-out, and then there was like another cop-out ending on top of that. I won't give anything away. Just to me, I wanted to like the movie total letdown.
I thought it looked compelling. I have not yet seen it. I'm sure I still will.
Yeah, definitely still check it out. See for yourself. You might like it. You like Living in Oblivion.
Sure, I love Living in Oblivion. So if it's like that, if it's anything like that, sure.
Seems to me just like a blatant ripoff with a little bit of psychological. I like that. First of all, Michael Keaton's performance was fantastic. That much I totally support. If he wins Best Actor, I will be pleased because he's earned it. Okay. The stuff where he's dreaming about Birdman or whatever, that stuff's great. It's just it's so little about that and so much more about the plot and just the play. Yeah, it's not for me.
Okay. Fair enough.
Next movie on the list, we have Boyhood, which is a coming-of-age story of a kid that grows up over the course of 12 years. This movie was filmed over 12 years, and that's that's both. It's
weird. Like 12 years ago, I'm sure they had different technology for filming than they do now. Do you think they used the same cameras over this 12-year span?
I never thought of that. That's a very good question. No one in any of the reviews I've read has ever posited that. That's a great idea. I don't know.
I'm curious. Is it a documentary? Is it
no, just straight up fiction.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a commitment. I wonder when a guy gets paid for a 12-year role.
I know. I wondered about that. My understanding, and I could be kind of incorrect about this, but what I heard was I think like the cast actually regrouped once a year for like a week. Like they got together every year for like a week to film, and then just see you next year.
That seems a little less ambitious than I imagined, but it's still a lot of commitment. Well, I pictured like this kid being followed around documentary style for 12 fucking years. And
they did that with Hoop Dreams, though not.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. I gotcha.
So.
You know, the people who like it say that it's, technically ambitious. The people who don't.
Well, it's a fantastic original idea realized, which is admirable at the very least.
I mean, they're supposedly showing this kid growing up before your eyes, and to me, that seems cool. I mean, everyone in the movie actually legitimately just filmed it for, a decade. The people who don't like it, they're basically saying, look, aside from that gimmick, there's not much of a movie here.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that could be too.
Yeah, that's one that I'll have to check out. We'll have to see. Yeah, next is the Grand Budapest Hotel from Wes Anderson.
Ah, okay.
Now, when I watched Birdman and was so thoroughly disappointed, I'm not a fan of Wes Anderson. I did not like The Royal Tenenbaums, which was my first movie, and at that point, only movie of his I'd ever seen. I watched it on the hype, and I thought this movie does not live up. I just don't care about what's happening in this film. So I didn't really care about Grand Budapest. I thought it's just another, whatever pretentious whack-off. But since I was so burned from Birdman that same night, I thought, fuck it, now's the time. I'm so cynical and depressed tonight from having seen this movie that I thought would be good. I'm throwing in Grand Budapest Hotel because this movie will either lift me off my feet or continue to just make me feel just hateful for the rest of the night. To my utter surprise, I loved it. I thoroughly loved it.
I would like to go out there and just say I am a huge Wes Anderson fan. One of my favorite movies, definitely in probably definitely in the top 100, if not top 50, is Rushmore. Fantastic movie. I don't know if you've ever seen Rushmore. If not, you should definitely go see Rushmore. I liked Royal Tenenbaums. I adored Grand Budapest Hotel. I thought it was great. I think that's the only one of these I've seen so far. So
it's one of only the two. The other one only being Birdman. And obviously based on what I've just said, I would thoroughly endorse Grand Budapest for Best Picture based on the limited films I've seen. I loved the acting. I love the plot. I love the script. I love the cinematography. Sure. It was a beautiful looking movie. I loved the score. I mean, there was nothing I disliked.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Wes Anderson movie through and through, man. So I would go check out some of his other movies. I would even be so bold as to recommend you revisit Royal Tenenbaums.
I've considered it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
What next?
Yeah. Next, we have The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. He's playing I don't want to get the details wrong, so I don't want to give out any names.
That sounds like a porn star name.
It's The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. He does sound like a porn star. He does. Benedict.
What else is he in? I can't place the face with that wacky name.
He's getting really popular these days. He plays Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
Yeah. He played the voice of Smaug in The Hobbit, of course. Yeah. Again, I don't want to give names or details because I'm not familiar enough with this movie to get it all correct. I'm just going to, give out incorrect information. But it's a World War II drama about a real person. I guess this was a real historical figure who I think worked for us. I think that he was working for the Allies, and I guess he was a code cracker. And something about his homosexuality, I guess, like somehow compromised his career or led to problems for him down the line. So I think those are the
World War II is a long time before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, even. So
well put.
Sure.
There you go. Yeah, that one's getting some really good reviews. That was supposed to be one of the better ones on the list. Yeah.
Okay.
Next we have Selma, the Martin Luther King film that just came out a couple months ago.
All right.
Supposed to be good, but a lot of controversy for that movie because it was only nominated for only is a relative term, only nominated for Best Picture and Best Song.
For Best Picture.
There are some people upset about that. Yeah, there's some people. Fair enough. Some people think that it should have been, they should have been nominated for Best.
They just don't want Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson outside the fucking door. And that's nothing to say. I am Dr. Martin Luther King is a hero. An American fucking hero, but if it's just a mediocre movie, that's what it is.
Well, supposedly, what I've read, and again, I can only go off of the opinions of the people who've seen it and reported about it. A lot of the Academy members have actually given interviews where they bristled about that. They said, "Look, this isn't a racist thing. The movie's really good, but it's just kind of like by the numbers. It's
it's no Ghost." I'm sorry.
That was an exact quote. It's no Ghost. Sure. Oh, man. All right. Getting down to the end of the list here, we've got The Theory of Everything, which is the biopic about Stephen Hawking.
I want to see that. Dr. Hawkins is fucking genius. And
Yeah, obviously brilliant man. He apparently endorsed the movie completely. He's a big fan of how it came across. Apparently, people are saying this is one of the Birdman, Boyhood, and The Theory of Everything, and to a lesser extent, The Imitation Game. Those are the ones I'm hearing about the most. Those are the ones that have the most buzz as far as like these are really the top of the crop this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be a really good one. A really good one. I want to check that one out too. Last, we have Whiplash, which is the, I don't know if it's true or I don't know if it's fiction. I'm not entirely sure. Don't know too much about this one yet, but it's apparently a story of a drum student and his horribly domineering, overbearing boss, J.K. Simmons, who was, he's a character actor. He was in Oz. He played, can't think of the guy's name, the newspaper magnate in the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. Yeah. He's supposed to be fantastic in it, and that's another one that's getting a lot of high praise.
He is a very good actor. He was great in Oz. He plays a crazy Nazi in Oz.
My understanding is he more or less plays a crazy Nazi in this.
Oh, there you go. Well,
not an actual Nazi, but just that fierce. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I can see him playing that part well. He's a very talented actor, actually.
He is considered pretty much the lock for his nomination for that movie. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I'd be happy. I didn't see the movie, but I've never seen him be bad in anything I've seen.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, it's always nice to see character actors just kind of getting recognized, finding that role that suits them well enough to just get unanimous praise.
Sure.
Yeah, always great when that happens.
Yep. So is that it? Is that our whole pool, or is there another?
Did I go through all 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's all right. Yeah. Well, there you go.
I casted my vote for Grand Budapest because it's the only one I have any right to cast a vote for. It's the only one I've seen. And it was fucking fantastic. So.
Yeah, one of only the 2 movies that I saw, and I completely 100% preferred it to Birdman, so I'd be happy if it won too. Sadly, it's not going to win, but hey, you never know. I guess we'll see. By next episode, we'll be like, oh man, fucking Birdman won, and you'll wind up loving it, and I'll punch my TV.
Well, I guess we'll wait and see, and those are our Best Picture nomination for the Oscars.
All right, we'll see how that goes.
All right.
Somebody's sitting here thinking, why won't they talk about Kirby's Adventure?
That's just it. Last week, the Game-O-Matic Selector 500,000 chose Kirby's Adventure for us, and that's what we played. Kirby's Adventure it's a game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Came out in the year 1993. And I don't know if you don't know who Kirby is. He's this lovable little puffball that floats around and does cutesy-wootsy things. Do you have anything to say about the initial impressions? Just say looking at the box, anything like that?
Well, 1993 was a very, very transformative year for me. I won't go into it at all right now. I'll save that for another episode.
Sure.
But 1993, I had a whole hell of a lot going on, and among them was playing. Not that I had as much time to play Super Nintendo games because of what I had going on, but when I did, I usually was playing my Super Nintendo. When I did gaming in '93, the Nintendo it was kind of a little bit on the way out. It lasted around in the market for about 94, 95 before it kind of completely ceased as far as game availability. So Kirby was kind of at the tail end of the NES's lifetime.
Right.
And because of that, it kind of flew under the radar for me. I never really played it, never really paid attention to it.
It kind of also for me when I'm I was 14 in '93, so just being a 14-year-old teenage boy going into a store renting a video game, it really looked like either a kid's game or even take it a step further, it looked like a little girl's game. So it was never one that just looked appealing for me to go and rent, which. That's probably why I never got around to playing it until just this last week. So,
yeah, I myself didn't think that it looked like a girl's game, though I can see why one would, because it's a cute little pink, fluffy,
Yeah, it looks like you.
And I'm going to go on record. I hate that girls have the market on the color pink. The color pink is actually a really rad color, but men can't enjoy because women have.
Hey, we grew up in the '80s. It was all the rage.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, back in the '80s, you can get away with pink because it was everywhere on everything.
So 1993, what was going on in 1993? I was 14 years old.
I turned 15 near the end of that year.
Sure, I turned 14 at the very beginning of that year. I'm a January birthday, so. Any significant things? X-Files X-Files came out in 93, the first episode.
X-Files actually began in 93, huh?
Yeah. First episode of X-Files aired in 1993, which I'm not a huge X-Files fan, although I did like the show. I'm not like super diehard, but it's significant to me. It had a lot of subject matter I'm into. I'm into the esoteric. We mentioned on our first episode where we both like UFOs, aliens, that sort of thing, and a lot of just sort of supernatural things.
Actually, I just want to cut in really quick. I don't know if we did keep that in. I think we had to cut that part because we tripped over we tripped over ourselves and had to cut that part out. Yeah, I don't know if the fans do know that we like UFOs.
Okay, well, we're both a U.S. UFO enthusiast, esoteria enthusiast, that sort of thing. Not so much cryptozoology. I don't know. I do find that fascinating.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's neat. I don't find it as I kind of feel like if there's things on this planet we should have found them by now, sort of thing. Where
why hasn't Bigfoot left a corpse or a pile of shit
or something? Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so I'm a little more intrigued by just a vast galaxy where if you point a telescope in a pinpoint of a sky and zoom in close enough, say with like the Hubble telescope, you can see that there's literally like billions of galaxies in one direction. It leaves a lot more to the imagination that there's a lot of stuff going on out there. So.
I don't want to misattribute this quote, which I'm going to have no choice but to do it anyway. It may or may not have been Sir Arthur Conan Doyle who said, and I'm sorry if I'm completely incorrect in this, but somebody
paraphrase, who cares?
Yeah, whatever. Whoever said this, they really had a great mind. They said, and again I paraphrase, there are two distinct possibilities. Either we are alone in this universe or we aren't, and either possibility is terrifying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. What else happened in 93? Warheads candies. Remember those things?
Warheads. Did they come after or before Crybabies?
They came after. They might have been around before them in other countries. I think but they came to America in 1993, and they were these little disc hard candies that were sweet, actually, but they had like this powdery coating on the outside of them that was just like ultra sour intense. Like if you like sour things like Sour Patch Kids, like multiply that by I'm sure they're still around. I'm sure you guys.
I don't know if they are actually. Have you seen any? I haven't seen any.
Yeah, but I don't eat that type of candy and stuff anymore either. I never go shopping for like sweet hard candies, that kind of thing. So they could very well be around. I just don't notice them. But it used to be one of those games you could see how long you could keep it on your tongue, and I was able to keep it on my tongue long enough for like the sweetness to set in. So.
And then later on in the afternoon, your tongue is, raw.
I couldn't taste anything for like a week. It was just super sour. But
that's how it was for the Crybabies, which were chewable gum. That was actually gum in the form of, just like little gum balls that were, as you said, completely just drenched in super deep sugar. I'm sorry, sour. Well, there you go, sour sugar.
And then another thing, another candy that was actually discontinued that year, much to my dismay, was the Bar None candy bar. I was a huge fan of the Bar None candy bar. It was like a peanut buttery, chocolate, crispy kind of. It was almost like a whatchamacallit.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed those Bar None candy bars, and they discontinued them in 1993. So
I don't really remember that one. I remember the name, but not what it looked like. What was the packaging like?
It was very bland. It wasn't appealing to kids. So it was like brown. It was a Hershey's product. It was brown and blandish, and it just said Bar None, and it showed a little picture of the candy bar on the wrapper. So it wasn't very creative. It wasn't really marketed very well. It was absolutely delicious though. So a little sad about that. And another thing that nobody else, it shouldn't even exist, but it was discontinued in 93, much to my delight, was Crystal Pepsi. They stopped selling Crystal Pepsi in 1993, and no one seemed to notice because no one bought the shit. So
now, when I started high school, which was 1993, both of us started high school. I guess technically it's subjective, but for us, technically based on our local area, for us, starting high school at the age of 14, 15 was early. For us, middle school was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and then high school was 10th, 11th, and 12th.
I remember it being 8th grade when I first discovered the Crystal Pepsi. So.
Yeah, you might have actually been into it earlier than I was, because I think it was high school itself, my first year in high school, where I first discovered it and drank it, and I actually liked it.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't as good as regular Pepsi.
Yeah, there was no reason to prefer it.
Exactly. It was just like it was just one of those things. If you don't know what it is, basically Pepsi was like, you know what we should do? We should take our cola and make it clear for some reason.
I think, and
it was
really
gimmicky, and it was one of those things that it was just a gimmicky thing to push sales, and it never caught on.
Well, I think what it was is that they wanted to court the people that were concerned that Pepsi was, cola in general was too, bad for you, the dark color, whatever, the sugar tar, whatever. They wanted to make it, because clear implies, cleanliness.
And then Saturday Night Live had that excellent parody of it, where it was crystal gravy, exactly. It showed them, like, they probably used corn syrup. Like, they showed them, like, pouring this clear gravy over a pile of mashed potatoes. It was just so unappealing.
Well, do you remember the commercials for Crystal Pepsi with Van Halen?
Oh, sure, yeah. Like, exactly.
How glorious it was that we would have a clear carbonated beverage.
I know. Do you have any fond memories of anything else that you remember from 1993 significant?
I want to throw in a quick shout out to Hershey's Cookies and Mint candy bars. I have no reason to believe that they either came in or left at 1993, but I first experienced them.
That's when you were getting into them, huh?
Yeah, that's when I first even knew that they existed. Yeah, I tried one and I thought, well, that sounds delicious. How could this not be great?
Sound delicious, yeah.
Oh, it was. I thought it was fabulous, and I never really saw it outside of that year. For all I know, they just don't make them anymore.
All right.
So shed a tear for the Cookies and Mint candy.
Yeah. Any big video game systems come out that year?
The 3DO came out in 19.
The 3DO. Yeah. I played the 3DO once in my life.
One time? Where was that?
One time. My friend, a buddy of mine I grew up with, I've actually known since I was 4 years old. My mom used to watch his, kind of play nurse for his grandma as his grandma was ailing. And I was homesick from school one day, but I went with my mom over to help her out over by their house, and he happened to come home from school that day, and he was just like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, not much, how you doing? And he just looked at me with this look on his face like he was super awesome. He goes, dude, I got the 3DO. And I was like, what's that? And so we sat down and played the 3DO, and I was not too impressed. I don't remember the game we played, but it wasn't that fun. It did look impressive. At the time, it did look impressive, and it was this neat thing, but man, I think he paid like $700-800 for that system.
That's what I was going to say. Unless the information that I had at the time from, for example, EGM Magazine, which I subscribed to in that year, that was my first year subscribing to it, they said that the 3DO debuted at, like, I think legitimately $700.
That's just crazy, and people were going crazy over the PlayStation 4 being, $400 and the Xbox One being $500, and rightfully so, honestly. But yeah, man, could you imagine 1993, a $700 gaming system? Jeez, this kid must have he probably had a job, and he must have spent, saved up every paycheck for
one of those long paper routes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I myself own a 3DO, but I got it in the year 2000. We should actually give a shout out to that. I should stop saying shout out. we should make proper reference to this store. We never talked about it last time. The Powerhouse.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the sweatshop last episode where we used to rent games. That was the first place in Kenosha where you could go and rent your video games and that sort of thing. But the main place, the place we all turned to and where everyone went to, was called the Powerhouse. And this was the first store that was solely dedicated to just video game rental. And it was fantastic. They just had walls. It was like walking into a video store that was nothing but video games.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, wall to wall. Yeah. Legitimately, literally, wall to wall, nothing but video games.
Yeah.
It was run by a super nice guy named Mike.
Super nice guy. Mike's son, Mike, married a good friend of mine from high school. So.
Really?
Yep.
That's awesome. We'll have to talk about that after the show. Sure. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah, the sweatshop was originally run by a couple, Jody and Katrina. Jody being the male. I never, met a male Jody before or after that, but there you go. His girlfriend was Katrina, very nice young couple, probably in their early to mid-20s. They eventually sold the sweatshop to another person named Jody, this time a middle-aged woman. And they were all super sweet, super cool. Again, Mike at the Powerhouse was super cool, and we just got games all the time. That was just a thing to do back then.
And that's where you got your 3DO?
Yeah, in 2000, when the 3DO, which had only been out about 5 to 6 years at that point, apparently dropped quite significantly down the totem pole.
When you charge somebody $700 for a system, and the main people interested in it are like kids who don't have money, you're going to end up taking a big shit on that investment. I mean, that's just, you gotta use your head.
I picked it up for $30.
Wow. Nice.
Right in the middle of that pendulum swing. I always say that the game industry works on the pendulum. Games start pricey, they drop significantly when the demand sinks, and then,
they go back up when they become a collector's item.
And I got it right at that sweet spot when he just had inventory that he didn't need. And I said, fuck it, man. It had Wolfenstein. I'm a fan of the Wolfenstein game.
Oh, great game.
Yeah, the original, I love that game. That was my first first-person shooter ever. And fuck it, I think it was the first-person shooter ever. The first, official good one. So, yeah, that sold me on that system. And I picked it up for $30. I have like maybe one or two other games on it that I never play, so there it is.
Perfect.
Yeah. The Jaguar also came out in '93, did it not?
Ooh, the Atari Jaguar. I wanted the Jaguar so bad because it had like just the still shots. I also had a subscription to EGM. And I seen.
Oh, I didn't know that. Back then around that time, I actually legitimately didn't know that.
Oh,
wow.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I had one for quite a while. I tried to get one recently. A friend of mine was actually going door-to-door selling magazines, and he perchance knocked on my apartment door one day, and I ordered a subscription to it from him just because I remembered having it, and they had just stopped making it. Like I got a phone call about a month later saying, hey, we've seen you order this magazine, and they're no longer printing that magazine. So
yeah, they just stopped.
Exactly. I was a little bummed out because I was looking forward to getting some, but anyways. Back on track. There were some still shots of an Alien versus Predator game for the Atari Jaguar, and it just looked fantastic. So I was really excited, and I really wanted to play it, and never did. So
I never did either, and that was also the game that interested me in the Jaguar. I never, I guess, quote, wanted one back when it was still new, but
sure.
That also got kind of inexpensive. I think that was like $50 or $60 at the Powerhouse around the same time. Yeah, I actually I got the 3DO after deciding not to get the Jaguar from Mike.
How much were they asking for the Jaguar?
Again, I think the Jaguar was probably at that point, the used, no one cares about this anymore price was around, I think, 50 to 60, maybe as high as 75, but I don't think it was actually, quite that high.
Sure.
Yeah, and for as much as I wanted 3DO for Wolfenstein, I wanted the Jaguar for the same game, Alien versus Predator. Alien versus Predator. Maybe it was Aliens versus Predator. I don't quite recall because I never played it.
Sure.
So
you never ended up picking up a Jaguar at any point?
No, I never did. I've never to this point even held the controller in my hand. I've never even touched it. No.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I'd like to give it a day in court. I know it's a pretty crusty system from what I hear, but
have you seen the controller?
I have not actually. I'm sure I have seen the controller, but I can't conjure up.
It's like a BlackBerry. It's like a big fucking awkward pad where it's like a dozen, like 15 to 20 buttons or so, like on the front of it. It's got it's terrible. It's a big awkward fucking. It's terrible. It's terrible. You'd have to see it. The 3DO controller not all that great either, but it certainly wasn't that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any movies stand out from 1993? Anything you really dug, really got into from 93?
Funny that you should ask. Actually, 3 movies constantly vie for my choice of absolute top favorite, single most, just absolute favorite movie of all time.
Why don't you give me one from 93? Give me one.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is out of these 3 movies, only one of which came out in 1993, and that is A Perfect World. With Kevin Costner.
With Kevin Costner. That's a great movie. And Clint Eastwood.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Fantastic movie. I dig it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first movie that Clint Eastwood made after Unforgiven. He directed it.
Yep.
And it tells the story, basically, Kevin Costner. It takes place in, I think, 1963, early 1960s, down in the South in Texas. Mm-hmm. Kevin Costner escapes from prison. Yeah. And he and his partner are on the lam. They're out looking for a car just to help aid their escape.
It's got to be a Ford.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, you remember that. It's got to be a Ford. His dad was a Ford.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're out looking for a car, and in the middle of the night when they're doing this, Kevin Costner's less stable partner breaks into a house, and basically he harasses the family. It's a young single mother and her son, and feeling like they've got really no choice, Kevin Costner kidnaps the kid for ransom.
Sure.
And the movie is basically them, Kevin Costner with this child, trying to deal with, having this young hostage. And, the rest of the movie is Clint Eastwood trying to, stop to this.
And if I recall, I do recall because I'm very familiar with the movie, it's a Jehovah's Witness family.
Yes, it
so
is.
like this kid has experienced like next to nothing of the joys of being a kid. So Kevin Costner kind of picks up on this and kind of has a little soft spot in his heart for the kid and gets him a Halloween costume and.
Indeed, yeah. The movie's kind of famous for the little kid having a Casper costume on. For part of the film. Yeah.
If you've not seen this movie, I mean, it's excellent. It's a great movie.
It's so good. Yeah. I mean, it's just a quiet, subtle. It takes its time. It's all about character. It's all about pace. I'm sorry, not pace. It's all about plot development. It's a nuanced film. It's basically Kevin Costner. I don't want to give anything away, but it's basically just his relationship with this young boy who grew up without a father, and Kevin Costner himself. Grew up without a father, so he can identify with this kid. But at the end of the day, this kid is still a hostage.
Right.
So I mean, it's all about the relationships between them and the relationship with
the law enforcement treats that as such. So
exactly. Yeah. Just an excellent drama. Excellent drama. I can't recommend it enough. Again, for the longest time, it was just my absolute favorite movie of all time.
It was never my absolute favorite movie of all time, but I've always enjoyed the movie. I've seen it a few times, and yeah, I can get behind that movie for sure.
Awesome.
Movie that stands out for me, obviously, I know this is a movie you know and love. It's a movie I know and love. True Romance. How can I not go for True Romance?
Absolutely. Yeah, when we were discussing this list and you mentioned that one, I thought, oh, fuck, how could I have forgotten that one?
Yeah, I mean, the late, great Tony Scott directed it. He's directed several good movies. Ridley Scott's brother.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. It's just written by Quentin Tarantino. If you guys,
it was actually his first movie. He didn't direct.
Yeah, he wanted to direct this movie.
Indeed.
Yeah.
He sold the script to make Reservoir Dogs. He thought that Reservoir Dogs would have been more financially viable, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, it stars Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, Christopher Walken. I mean, it's just a star-studded cast. Although Val Kilmer it took me a while to realize who Val Kilmer even was in that movie. But
yeah, I mean, it goes on. Sam Jackson has a part.
Oh yes, it was before he was very well known. It was a very very big part.
It was, one of his earliest roles.
Great part. It's a very funny part.
It's got Michael Rappaport. It's got Saul Rubinek, who was in one of my favorite Star Trek episodes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it goes on and on.
Sure. Oh, anyways, quick synopsis of that movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is very entertaining. Basically, a nerd, a comic book, an employee at a comic book store. It's his birthday. He's just kind of a geek, doesn't do well with the ladies, so he goes out on his birthday to go see a Sonny Chiba triple feature. It's Kung Fu, and he's there, and this lovely young Patricia Arquette.
Beautiful. Patricia Arquette at her best.
Stunning in this movie. She's very sexy in this movie, but she befriends him in the movie theater, and they end up having a good time watching the movies together. They go out for pie afterwards, and he ends up going home and getting a little something on his birthday, which he's pumped about. And then afterwards, she's feeling a little guilty, and she confesses to him that she's a hooker, and his boss put her up to it because his boss wanted to see him have a little fun on his birthday, and he didn't care. He just liked her. So
I mean, he was just so smitten with her. I mean, they had so much in common, and they hit it off so well. He was okay with the fact that she had been a call girl for I think that was her fourth customer or something of that fact.
So so this young man says, well, I'm willing to look past that, and he decides he's going to go tell her pimp that he is no longer her pimp, and well,
let's stop there.
Yeah.
Let's stop there.
Yeah. Well, okay. We can stop there.
Well, if you want to throw in a little bit more, I just want to make sure that the people.
I will. I'll just throw in a little bit more. He ends up killing her pimp.
Oh, okay.
And asks the other hookers, give me her things, give me Alabama. Her name's Alabama. Give me Alabama's things. So they hand him this suitcase, and he discovers this suitcase is just full of a shitload of cocaine. And the rest of the movie is basically him trying to find a place to get rid of it all so that him and his old lady can go retire. I mean, it gives away the plot of the movie, sure. But, I mean, it's nothing. This movie is all about the dialogue. It's all about the character acting. It's all about everything. It's just such a fantastically done movie.
It should be pointed out that everything you said happens within, I'd say, the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Exactly. Well, it sounds like I gave a lot away. I gave next to nothing away in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like first act. This is
one of the best scenes ever between Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken.
Oh, it's become legendary.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, James Gandolfini. The first time I ever Tony Soprano. First time I ever seen James Gandolfini in a movie. Oh my God, he is just ruthless in this movie.
Yeah, I mean everyone is pitch perfect in this movie. There's not one bad performance.
Oh man, he's such a good actor, and he even back then before he was well known. I mean, just So guys, 2 movies. Run out.
2 excellent movies.
Rent A Perfect World. Rent True Romance. Download them. I don't think either are on Netflix right now. But, I mean, they're not hard to find. Do yourself a favor. See these movies. Both out of 1993. So, our little conversation there should have helped set the mood for what was going on when Kirby's Adventure was released. And let's talk about some of the gameplay.
All right, talking about Kirby's Adventure, the first thing I want to talk about is actually the graphics. I'd like to address that right away because Kirby looks, coming at the end of the Nintendo's life, I'm sorry, not the Nintendo, but the NES. We're used to calling it the Nintendo. Howard and I grew up in an age to where we didn't have the Super Nintendo, we didn't have the Nintendo 64. At the time, it was just the Nintendo Entertainment System.
The Nintendo. Yeah. You ever hear us call it the Nintendo, we're talking about the NES.
Right. I mean, it's so weird for me to have to think that, a lot of people probably won't recognize that that's what we're referring to because just Nintendo means something so different now than when we were growing up. Sure. But yeah, on the Nintendo Entertainment System, there were a lot of great games by this time, but they were starting to kind of get thin. By that time, the Super Nintendo had been out for probably about 1.5 2 years, and, the Genesis had already been out for 3 to 4 years. So, I mean, really, the NES was just not getting really a lot of good games. They were kind of really drying up around this time. But HAL Laboratories, which is the company that made this game, let me see my notes here. It was directed by Masahiro Sakurai. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce him. I've never actually heard his name pronounced. He directed the game. And it's just, they really kind of took advantage of aging technology. The game was 6 megabytes in size, which was, I've got Nintendo games that are like 87 kilobytes in size. Right. So, Kirby's Adventure was a big game, and it shows. It looked, this is a colorful ass game. It is. This game is just exploding with color.
Everything you said was lacking in Mega Man from last week's episode is just apparently it's just prevalent in this game.
It is.
The backgrounds are gorgeous. The colors are breathtaking. The fluid motion of everything, actually.
I was going to say, the animation's nice and smooth. It's just a good-looking...
Kirby's a simple little blob, but I think that was ingenious, because in making him a simple little blob, it was really easy to make all of his animations fluid and stand out and work well.
Yeah, he was an amorphous character who just, I guess we'll smooth right into gameplay here. I was astounded by how much just variety this character had. He had a versatile amount of attacks. He can slide.
It's one of those things where you're playing a game and you get so frustrated. Like, what the fuck? All these characters have all these things. Why can't I do that? Well, Kirby's Adventure answers that for you. Kirby's Adventure makes it basically not all enemies, but most enemies. If they have like a particular thing they can do to you, an action, some kind of attack, you can inhale him and you push down and you can use that attack back against them. So it's kind of neat for once to be able to just, take all the frustrating things about a game and use them against the game. It's kind of cathartic in a way for a video game player.
And unlike Mega Man, where in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, the weapon that you get from the defeated enemy is similar in theme, but not identical to what was wielded against you. Yeah, in Kirby, there may be an example. If there is, I can't think of one. I'm pretty sure that like pretty much every weapon that you get from the enemies is identical to what they throw at you.
Yeah, very close, yeah.
Yeah. And this is on top of the fact that, again, Kirby can fly at any time. He can fly indefinitely, which is awesome.
He can spit out air, which kills things.
He spits out air in the form of he spits out a breath, like a little poof of air that can attack an enemy.
You can jump on an enemy's head and attack them. Although I do think you get a hit for that, but I believe you.
It depends. If you fall from a higher drop, at least in the few times I did this unintentionally, if I fell from a high height, like Kirby would, like his animation, his falling frame would change, and then he would actually bounce off the enemy and kill it without taking harm himself.
But even when you do take harm yourself, you still kill the fucking thing. So it's like fair's fair. It's like all these unheard of things. And I do want to say, which kind of makes the game a little easier than I like to have my games. A lot of these things that are fun, you're able to fly, you're able to do all these things. Being able to fly really makes it easy to just avoid a lot of the obstacles that are set in place.
I actually really thought that was awesome, though, because it meant that if you decided that for whatever reason you didn't want to walk around the ground and just kill everything,
yeah, no, don't get me wrong, it's awesome and it's fun and it's everything feels really cool and it's very neat that you can do that. If I just. And the game does progressively get harder, which I like to have. I like games that start out simple till you figure them out, and they progressively get harder. I kind of wish Kirby's got harder a little sooner for me. I feel like the first half, if not over half of the game, was a little easy, a little remedial. And that being said, I had fun doing it. Don't get me wrong. The gameplay is fun. The levels are beautiful. The music is fun. The music was fantastic in all the levels. I can't think of a song that really got on my nerves at all, honestly.
Well, we're actually skipping ahead a little bit. I want to cover all of those things, but,
sure.
but dwelling first on gameplay, I want to actually add to what you're saying. I think part of the reason why the game did at least feel easy at first, I kind of like this. It almost seemed as if maybe the game, the programmers were kind of like making sure that you were allowed a little bit of experimentation time.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, because again, in addition to, a lot of game characters cannot do what Kirby does. Kirby can run, duck, climb. I mean, he climbs ladders, again, float. Obviously, he can shoot. He can shoot out air. In addition to sucking in the enemies and taking their abilities, he can also. That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, he can also spit out stars and kill enemies without having to consume their power. So I mean, he's just got so many different.
If you have sucked in an enemy's power though too, you can get rid of that anytime you want.
Yeah, you can also eject that by hitting select.
Exactly. You can just hit select and get rid of. Say you find that it's bugging you. You don't really care for that ability. You can just get rid of it, which is nice. It's a nice option. You don't have to die first or like get hit first or take a hit to get rid of it, which is I thought they really thought of everything in this game.
They did.
It's really
the control I think is
game.
fantastic. Just the options of what you can do.
I agree. I think they did make these first few levels very simple in order for you to get the feel of everything that you have at your control. I think that they let it be simple a little too long, too many levels into the game. I think they should have tightened it up maybe at level 2 or 3 tops. I feel like they didn't really tighten it up to like the end of level 4 and going into level 5. So
there are 7 levels in this game, and I guess maybe 7 worlds, and within each of these 7 worlds, there are, on average, I'd say between 5 and 6 stages, levels, whatever you.
And then a boss fight, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, as far as the difficulty curve, I guess I noticed what you were talking about, but I didn't really find it to me. I wasn't as disappointed in that. I felt that the
you were having too much fun to notice that kind of
deal, not necessarily, actually. I'll get into that a little bit later, but actually, I thought that the ramp was very gradual. To me, I noticed that it was slow, but I thought that was actually kind of appropriate. Again, I'll get into a little bit more detail about this later, but I thought that it actually went at a fairly not a balanced pace, but I mean, it took its time, but I thought that it ramped up sequentially enough that I didn't feel that the challenge at any point became too difficult, too abrupt.
No. See, don't get me wrong. I thought the first few levels were fun. I had fun playing the game. I wanted to keep playing the game. I was at no point like, oh, this is just stupid or this is, indifferent. I enjoyed what I was doing. Like I said, the music I was enjoying at the time, so it wasn't like I was agitated by anything like that. The gameplay isn't tremendously fun. Just finding all the different things you can suck in. I mean, and absorb the powers. There's so many different ones to choose from.
Did you find that you had a specific favorite or one to the top?
In the beginning of the games, I really liked the spikes. The guy that you could suck in and you could just have spikes shoot out of your back.
I forgot about those because I don't really remember those popping up a whole lot in my later.
They didn't pop up a whole lot, but the first level was where I found them, and I don't know that I used them anymore after that. But I mean, it was just neat to be able to jump and then you hit it and all these spikes shoot out of your back and just stab into whatever's next to you. I thought he looked cool doing that. It was neat. You could just beat the shit out of the final boss with that thing. You just stand next to that tree and go thwat, 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 and he's just dead in no time. But
interesting. Yeah. I didn't have that weapon when I went against the tree. I think I had I don't even know, flames perhaps, or that weird sure. I don't even know what.
I went through and played it a couple times, and the first time I went through that stage, I didn't have anything. I just sucked in the stuff that you were throwing at me, the apples that were falling, I believe, and then just spit them back at him. But
sure,
yeah.
I don't know. I was a fan of the flame. There was a couple different types of flame.
Yeah,
There
the
was a
flame
flame
was
that
cool. Yeah, the
there,
tornado
there
was neat.
there was a flame that would shoot you across the screen, but then there was a different flame where your character just stood there and just spat fire.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
like the electric one that was kind of like the flame, but it was a little. It didn't project forward. It kind of went all around you. There was like, yeah, there's a lot of different ones to choose from, and they're all useful and all fun. The swords were neat. I don't know.
I didn't actually like the swords as much.
No?
To me, I was just so used to. I enjoyed shooting projectiles, so when I got the
Sure.
actual, hand, the melee weapons, I found that. I mean, they were still enjoyable, but I didn't like them as much. I felt a little bit.
The thing is, too, is they never really like pigeonhole you to have to use one of them. There's always a variety of different enemies around, so it never really just forces you to be like, oh, well, on this level you're using this one, like it or not. You kind of have options throughout the whole game.
Yeah, that's a good point. No one level restricts you. There's always at least, I would say, probably 6 to 8, probably more than that, different weapons that you can get per level, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, everything about it, too, even when you get to the end of some of those levels and there's like a star sitting there and all of a sudden it just whisks you off, and there's like cool animation sequence between like levels it's whisking you to, the music gets all intense. I don't know, man. It's neat. It was a neat game.
Right out the very start of the game, the very first thing you see is how to paint Kirby. Like
Yeah.
like a little, you press the power button, you turn on the game, and you see like this silly little, not even little. It's like a full screen animation of Kirby being being slapped with like a paintbrush to actually show you how to illustrate the character.
Exactly.
And yeah, and from that point on, it's like, I mean, that really kind of sets the stage. Like, there's a very lengthy intro at the beginning of the game talking about the famous Kirby and how he's, tasked with, trying to, I can't even remember what the damn plot of the game was. Like he woke up without having had a dream, and he wants to defeat. He wants to at least confront this duck creature, this King Dedeed or
Yep.
King Dedeed or whatever, because he believes that he is the source of Kirby having not had any dreams. And so Kirby goes through this dreamland, and it's just, the game is just so, I don't know, it's a charming game. It's full of character.
Yeah.
This game has a lot of character.
Sure, there's a whole big story. And have you read the instruction booklet for it?
I started flipping through it, and I totally
Yeah.
forgot because I actually got sucked into the game.
There's a big
That
story
is.
through that. I mean, there's the whole crisis in Dreamland, light years away, and it just goes into this huge story. There's like pages of it. And then they really go through everything. And they show you all these cool little animations. There's all these neat little drawings in there. They go through all the different characters you can suck in and stuff, and the abilities they give you. And it's one of those, I mean, all around, I can't say enough about how much effort and thought was put into this game.
Effort. That's a very good word to use. A lot of effort was put into this game.
Now, I've played, like I said, you've never played a Kirby game.
Never.
I've played a couple Kirby games, since this one, and I've enjoyed them, so I kind of knew what I was getting into. At the same time, and I know this isn't the first one, Kirby's Dreamland on Game Boy is the first one. I've still never played that. But being this game is when it came out, and being like the first, major system Kirby game that came out, big console system, it is really good. It's just done really well. I can't say enough about how good it is, honestly.
I mean, it's got its flaws, which we'll get to over time. But
Sure.
As far as just the actual
to me, the biggest flaw of the game, and this is personally, it doesn't.
Well, wait. Let's save that. Save it. Let's actually say
Okay.
that until we start wrapping up. Yeah, let's cover some of the other stuff first,
Let's
because
do it.
it might actually come out naturally. We might like the music, for example. Let's talk about that. You liked all the music. You didn't have any problem with it either.
No, I mean, there's some that weren't that great, I guess. But none that were like Iceman's level in Mega Man. None that were just like terrible and mundane and drab, like that just was like, oh, I wish this music would stop. Ever. Never once did I feel that way.
I never did either. However, I was also not wowed.
Some of the music is just fantastic, in my opinion. I really dug a lot of the music. It's hard to put my finger on exactly which levels. I want to say like 2-2 is the second level in the second portion of the game. I really dug the music in that. I really dig some of the later music, some of the boss fight music, that kind of stuff are kind of intense. There's one level towards the end of the game, I think it's level 7. It's one of the level 7s where it's black and white. The whole land is black and white. I really like the music in that level. So there's quite a bit of the music I really enjoyed, actually. I thought it was done pretty well.
None of it sounded bad to me. However, I noticed, and I guess this is going to happen, when you're an older game like this. But to me, it seemed like a lot of the tracks actually repeated themselves quite often.
And that's true, but that happens in a lot of games. There's not very many games where the music stays unique through the entire level, but they do kind of loop fairly quickly. That's true.
And that's not to say that any of them were bad, because again, none of the music struck me as really poor. Like, I didn't mute anything thinking, "Oh my God, I hate the song." Like you said, no Iceman music, but at the same time, just like I've forgotten it all. None of the tunes got stuck in my head. It all just seemed kind of just like bland background.
I got you. Yeah, I have a hard time conjuring up exact like melodies in my head. That's true. I did write down a couple levels that when I was taking some notes on the game. That's why I knew I liked 2-2. But honestly, I couldn't hum it for you right now.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, but if I popped it in, I don't know. It's pretty good stuff. None of it's like bad or hard to listen to by any means. All of it actually enhances or accompanies the gameplay and experience well, in my opinion.
It does, yeah, I'll agree with that. Even though I didn't really like I guess, I don't want to say indifferent, because that seems a little bit harsh. Although ultimately, I guess that's kind of what I have to say. I feel sort of indifferent to the soundtrack. I wouldn't go out and buy a CD of it, but it did feel right in the game. It did feel fitting for this world, for this character. It was, as you said, it really kind of complemented the action very well.
Yeah.
Was level 2 was that one of the I don't remember the name of the stages. It was the water, islands and so forth, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Oceans. Yeah, that was actually my favorite section of levels in the game. I think that and the very last level, the rainbow. I can't remember the name of these things. I should start writing them down.
Yeah, they all have different are they all kind of named after like vegetation or like fruit, like grape and orange and like
yeah, there was Orange Ocean, there was Yogurt Yard, I think like, was Yogurt Yard, yeah.
I suppose Kirby dreams of food, apparently.
Well, he does a lot of consuming, so I guess that seems to fit.
Sure. He is a fat little thing, so.
he is a corpulent beast. Oh, man. Yeah, the theme of the game fits. The music fits. The animation, the characters. It's like a very... I mean, again, I'm going to keep coming back to this. The game has a lot of character, and they really stuck to creating, just... A brand, an identity.
Yes, creating a unique gaming experience that is Kirby. And whenever, at least as far as the other games I've played, they all feel like you're playing a Kirby game. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
What did you think of the mini games dropped around?
I thought that was so cool, man. I dug the mini games. They were very fun. I liked the skill crane game. I felt like I was playing a skill crane. I liked that. I liked that it fell out sometimes, just like it does.
Yeah.
I actually got very good. That's another thing too. I mean, did you have to continue much in this game?
I continued once, but then after that I started kind of, not really cheating, but I guess in a way I was. I started using save states. I'm playing this on an emulator. So I started using save states just to, expedite the process instead of going back to the beginning of the stage.
I sat down in one sitting, so I didn't really use save states or anything for it.
Yeah, I broke it up over 3 days.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't, and honestly... aside from fighting like the last boss, I don't think I continued once. I found it was very easy to accumulate lives. There was lots of chances to get one-ups through this game.
For sure.
It wasn't really like I had a surplus of lives for the most part. I won't get into the final boss just yet, but I honestly think I might have just continued once.
I remember specifically where I continued, and we'll get to that part because it was at a boss. So we'll definitely get to that for sure. We'll both share our stuck boss story.
How did you feel about the controls? Did you feel like the controls were easy to use, or did you feel like it felt good? Was it responsive?
Yes and no. It's funny you should ask that, actually. When I was talking about how versatile Kirby is, just in how many different commands he has at his disposal, how many different ways he can move, not even just fight enemies, but move. I mean, you have a full control of abilities.
He can fly, he can jump, he can do all this different stuff.
Yeah.
So, are you gonna? I think I know what you're gonna be getting at, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, for me specifically, that's good on paper, and for the most part, I would say it's successful in this game. But that does, or at least in my case, that did lead to scenarios where just there's only so much you can do with one pad and 2 buttons. Sure. And I would get in situations to where the game is easy, but you do sometimes find yourself in precarious scenarios to where you're surrounded by enemies, and if you get hit, you drop your special ability that you've consumed from another enemy.
Yeah. If you suck that star back in immediately, though, and push down, you get it back.
And that's just it. See, what happens is there have been times to where I was surrounded by enemies or trying to, skirt through a particularly tight corridor, and I'd get hit. The star would come out, and I'd like run to jump to consume the star and start sucking in. The B button sucks in. That's your sucking in your vacuum effect.
Right.
That's how you both suck in enemies. That's how you suck in the star that represents their special abilities after you've been hit. And pressing B when you jump, I like that. Also, that's part of the process of flying. Like you press up to fly. When you jump in the air and press up, you start to fly. But while you're flying, if you press B, that lets you exhale and you fall back down to the ground.
Sure.
So there's kind of a lot going on.
And that also shoots out your breath that you can attack with that too.
Right. There's a lot going on with these different, just these couple of different commands, these couple of different directions and buttons. So there were times to where I found myself getting hit by an enemy, wanting to jump up and hurry up and scurry to collect that star, to suck in that star.
Sure.
But instead of sucking in the star, I would instead float and then exhale and then drop back down to the ground. And, I'd
Sure.
kind of stall as this. Yeah, and I get hit again, and then the star is flying away from me even further and further. Long story short, you have a lot of abilities, but sometimes kind of maybe unconsciously, sometimes at least in my case, some of the commands overlap, and you wind up doing stuff you don't intend.
Yeah, I don't think that happens very, very often.
Not often.
I think for the most part it is easy to navigate what you want to do. I think sometimes, you do. I mean, it's just human nature when you jump to sometimes want to push up. So when you do that, you push up, then you start, floating when you didn't necessarily want to, that sort of thing. But I mean, for the most part, I didn't have a huge problem. I thought it was pretty easy to do what I was intending to do.
I'd say 90.
But I did have that situation you described happen to me on more than one occasion. That's for sure. I mean, it happened.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, for the most part, the game pulls it off, and I think admirably so, because, again, there is a lot to grapple with as far as controls and movement and variety, but you will, or at least I believe that most people probably will, at some point or another, run into a situation to where, whatever, they inflate when they meant to, to jump, or whatever, they deflated when they meant to suck in, the star that's jumping away from them, and, when you've got all that stuff going on at once, it can be a little bit hectic occasionally.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and good. The game should be a little hectic occasionally. It should be a little challenging. It should be a little keep you on your toes. There's not enough wrong with that. I'm glad the game is exactly the way it is. I don't think they could have done a better job making all those functions work with 2 buttons and a directional pad. So I got to give my hats off to everything you can do and can do well with Kirby in this game. So
I don't think it's a perfect system, but I think overall they did a very good job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I mean, we were talking about the controls. Now I moved right on past the minigame stuff. You were talking about the crane. You like the crane game.
I like the crane. I love at the end of the levels that you can shoot up and try to get yourself a free life, which I got very good at. It's pretty challenging. It's frustrating when you get to level 2 and you don't hit that level 1 and get the life because you're so close. But I do like that sometimes you can jump all the way up if you hit it good, but sometimes you can cling to level 1 and climb the rest of the way up.
Right,
I like his little celebration dance where 3 Kirbys pop out and it plays a fun little ditty and they do a little dance for you.
That's another example of the charm to this game is that for each of the levels, at the end of every 3 to 5 levels, you have sort of a little mini game to where you are dropped on sort of a spring that bounces you back up to one of several different platforms above you, and by timing the button press correctly, you can get to a higher platform, and the higher you get, the more points you get. And the reason I bring this up, specify exactly how it goes, is you were talking about the animation. At the top level, what happens is on every one of these different platforms you wind up on, each one of those platforms will give you a different animation. Kirby will do a different little celebration. Yeah, he'll do a different little dance on every different level that you get to. So it's almost worth, failing those first few times just to see what different things Kirby does on each level that you get.
What did you think about the sharpshooting one, the draw, the
I thought that was funny. That's one of the mini games. Is you actually legitimately have to quick draw against enemies.
Quick draw and
shooting.
Yeah, and it's the more people you shoot, the more points you get. And you eventually get lives if you shoot enough. And
people. The smaller the window gets, or at least that's how
exactly that you can press. And if you press it too soon, you're penalized. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was interesting. That was fun. Actually, my favorite was the egg catching.
Yeah, absolutely. I never got a free life on that one. That was the one I couldn't master. I just sucked in a bomb. I always get about 3,000 points on that one, like every time.
You have these random little interludes in your conquest to approach King Dedede. I've never heard it pronounced, so I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm going with King Dedede because just to me that's how it looks.
Sure.
But this duck, like again, like every now and then you'll be going through these worlds and you'll just have an interlude where this duck will just challenge you to suck down a bunch of eggs, and he'll mix in bombs. And if you suck down the eggs, you get points. As soon as you accidentally suck down a bomb, you lose the mini game. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they actually put you in like a little boxing/wrestling ring, like you're actually in a ring consuming all these eggs.
I know, exactly, because that's the appropriate place to
that's the venue.
Eat eggs and bombs, apparently.
Just silly shit like that. Again, that's just so much character. That's just that much more character for the game.
Yeah, it is. It's.
There's one of them. I don't know if you ever came across the gladiator pit. You actually have like an actual gladiator.
Sure.
fight.
Yeah, you fight somebody. Yeah, 1-on-1. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. You get all these little opportunities to rank up your score and get extra lives, and yeah, it's I don't know, there's a lot of stuff to do, just a lot of stuff to do and see in this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of options, a lot. I can see going through this game and having a different experience more than once too. You can choose to, because that's the thing. You really can choose for most of the earlier levels. You can just choose to circumvent everything and fly around it. You can get through it pretty fast if you make that choice. Or you could choose to not fly at all and have to jump through everything and make it more difficult for yourself if you wanted to. So...
Now, one thing that I decided to do once I ran across it was I got a weapon that was, again, I have to write this shit down. I got a like a boomerang type of weapon. I think it was just called like the cutter or something like that. Yeah. Once I got that, I was particularly fond of that weapon, so I made it a point to try really hard to last as long as I could without switching weapons, just to see how I could do it. And I actually went through a couple of maybe not worlds, but a couple of whatever levels, stages. Yeah. Did you actually stick to one particular weapon for a while? Like, did you find
there's certain weapons that once I got them, I tried to keep them because they were just badass. The laser is pretty badass.
The laser was handy, yeah.
I love that one level. I forget exactly which one it is, but like it's set up to where, because the laser will bounce off of things.
Right.
So it's actually set up to where if you hit like the right angle on some of these walls, there's other angles. It'll bounce through like different angles and take like an enemy out that's around you. And it's set up to totally do that for you. So if you hit the right angles, you can like watch your laser bounce through like 3 or 4 different things and like take out the enemy that's ahead of you. So I had a good time playing that level. I thought that was pretty fun.
That's pretty cool.
My favorite, in the earlier levels, I like the spiky one, but as you get later in the game, when you're in space, and obviously you can suck in the alien spacecraft, the flying saucer, and Kirby becomes a flying saucer with a frickin' ray gun.
Are you serious? I never did that.
You never did that?
No, I never tried.
Oh, yeah, you gotta go back and try that. If you suck in the flying saucer, Kirby becomes a fucking flying saucer. And you can fly. You have like no restraints. You can zip back and forth, up and down, and you can shoot just like those flying saucers can. Yeah,
that's fucking fantastic.
Super cool. The best one in the whole game by far.
Oh, and I never got to see it.
Yeah, gives you a reason to go back. If you have any of those save states loaded on that screen, I mean, in that area of the game, it's worth it doing it at least once. It's fantastic. At least go on YouTube and find a video of it. It's neat.
Yeah, that's worth checking out. I guess what happened was those enemies are a little bit. I mean, not even a little bit. They're pretty zippy. They're pretty fast, and if you don't anticipate them properly, they
sure. And when you are when you are the UFO, you are that zippy and fast. It's neat.
Oh, sweet. Did that make it any harder to control? I mean,
a little bit because there's a lot going on around you. It was hard to keep that for a long period of time.
Sure.
But it was, like I said, obviously we're fans of UFOs, so it was neat to be able to be a flying saucer out of the gate, and then it was just, the controls were very neat, it worked very well, you had a gun on top of it, it was cool.
Now, did you ever wind up getting the I would assume everyone has this rude awakening at some point or another through the game, but did you accidentally suck in one of the enemies that puts you to sleep?
Yeah. You're just like, oh, how long is this going to
take? Yeah, and you just sit there fucking asleep for like a good 5-10 seconds, just waiting, hoping an enemy doesn't hit you.
Sure. I do like how you see an enemy that's like a block, there's blocks in between you. If you're close enough, you can suck them right through the block and stuff.
Right.
So, like, it's very user-friendly. Unlike Mega Man, very user-friendly game. It really gives you as many opportunities as it gives your enemies to, like, you know, I don't know.
That's
and it does. Once you start getting to level 5, 6, 7, it does get more challenging. It's not like the whole game's just incredibly easy. It's a lot easier than Mega Man, so maybe that's another reason why I felt like it was a little too easy, but some of the boss fights are a little tricky. Some of the boss fights, you got to figure out how to beat them, and you should. You should have to figure out.
You know, I actually thought the boss fights, indeed they were tricky, but that's actually kind of cool, is that this game, not only does it afford you a lot of creativity as far as how you want to go through the level and how you want to dispatch your enemies, it also uses that same creativity against you by giving you enemies that you really have to kind of think about to fight.
Sure,
you can't just, you have to be creative.
At the same time, too, you have to be creative. They do kind of give you more of an opportunity to catch on to a pattern before you're dead and figure out how to beat them before you actually die and have to go back and do it again.
Right.
I have died on I've died on a few of the enemies, but for the most part, I was able to conquer them. I did like that one level where you went through and fought all the enemies again right after another consecutively. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, where you're going up a tower fighting.
Yeah, that was actually very neat. And then you start thinking about, like, oh shit, man, I'm going to have to fight those other tricky ones soon, and I'm getting low on energy. You're like, all right.
That's one of the things about this game is the boss variety. There's sort of like 3 tiers of bosses. There's what I consider to be the first tier, which is this pops up probably at least 6 times in the game. There are like different platforms in the screen, and like different like single shot enemies will show up on each of these platforms and throw their various projectiles. Yeah. Like, you know, they're like maces or morning stars or whatever, like little boomerangs, and you have to like defeat them all. And as soon as you defeat one, another one of that same or, you know, similar type will appear on a different platform. Sure. And that alone is tricky. The whole point of that is trying to make sure that you dispatch all the enemies in such a way to where, you know, you're jumping across between the different. It's a
those little like swordsmen, those little that would call
right. Yeah. Little swordsmen. Yes, indeed. That's sort of like the first tier enemy.
Yeah, well, because I couldn't figure out how to beat them. I was like, well, do I just attack them individually, or is there a main one I'm trying to shoot stuff at? At first, I was kind of like, I was confused.
Right, and once you get rid of them, I mean, again, they last longer and longer the further you get into the game. Like at first, the first time you encounter these things, I think you just have to kill each of there's like 3 on the screen on different platforms, and I think you have to just kill all 3 of them, and then that's it. But by the end of the game, you have again these same like multiple platforms, these different enemies, but then they now drop like bouncing enemies that disrupt your patterns. You have to kill those things. More of the enemies regenerate; they respawn after you kill them. Another one pops up. This one is in a different spot. So that's tricky. It's interesting, but again, it's tricky. The bosses rely on dexterity a lot. I mean, like you're not just like hammering the button, just trying to fire off as many shots as you can. You're trying to just be agile and tricky and swift in order to avoid getting hit, and that's cool. I mean, that takes full advantage of the character's attacks. Sure. It's just his range of motions.
And even though you do have to, you never feel like you're just standing there doing nothing either.
No, not at all. You're on your toes for the boss fights.
Yeah. And it's weird because some of the boss fights seem like they come like mid-level, like they're mid-carder bosses or something.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like there's still a chunk of level left after that you have to get through, and it's like, okay, weird. And then some of the bosses come at the end of the level, and you're done right away. So
there we go. See, that's what I was talking about. The things on the platforms, that was kind of the first tier, and then the second tier would be like I don't know, I call them like critter bosses. There's like a turtle.
Yeah, exactly. You got to fight like that weird alarm clock looking thing.
Alarm clock looking thing.
I don't know. It had like alarm clock bells on it. It would shoot like musical notes at you every now and then.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know.
And it's neat that you can like eat the boss. Once you kill the boss, you can
dissect.
The boss
I mean, not dissect. You can consume. You can digest the boss's dead corpse. That's great.
And it gives it gives you a fantastic weapon every now and then. Where like you like zip across the screen like 30 times and kill everything that's on it, kind of a deal. And
yeah, that one was like the crash ability or something.
Yeah, pretty rad. Like there's a shit ton of shit they let you do, man.
One of the things that I like talking about this, like what I would refer to as the second tier boss. A lot of them, like I don't know if you got like attacked by them enough, or if you were too quick and you avoided their capture. But some of the enemies, like again the turtle boss, there's one that looks like sort of like a I don't know, like a beetle of some kind.
The one that slams you to the ground.
Yeah,
like an ass.
Yeah, they do backdrops and suplex.
Yeah. It was awesome. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is frustrating, but yeah, it was neat enough. Yeah.
It's hilarious. Yeah, I mean when the turtle grabbed me and did like a Zangief like pile driver, it was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. And you can get that ability when you.
I could never figure out how to use it. I tried, jumping enemies and pressing the button, but I can never trigger it. Could you? Could you?
Oh yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
I don't know why I suck. That's
slam them down. Yeah.
And then the third tier boss, the final like actual end of level bosses, those are the trickiest of all. You have here like a painter on roller skates.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and they're tricky too. Like I said, they're not too tricky. Where like you get an opportunity to get a pattern down. Like I said, Mega Man was kind of like a lot of memorization. You have to like just die a bunch of times till you get it down. This, there's patterns, there's ways to figure out, but it gives you an opportunity to be successful out of the gate.
Right. I found that with Mega Man, that's a perfect example. It's a perfect point. With Mega Man, like when you face the boss, I mean, a first-time player who's not familiar with that specific Mega Man, whether it be 1 through 6, whatever, you learn the boss's, patterns by getting hit. You get bum rushed right out of the gate. You're like, okay, I'm in the boss's room, and oh shit, he's throwing stuff at me, and okay, now I'm half dead, but at least I know what he does. In Kirby, where you first approach the boss, I mean, you can totally just kind of fly away from the boss and
get his little pattern down a little bit. Right. Exactly, avoid him. Although some of them catch you off guard and jump up really high and knock into you, but
that's cool though too. Sometimes they do surprise you, but they at least do give you a little bit of an opportunity. If you're quick enough, unlike Mega Man, you get more of a, I guess, quote, chance in Kirby, and that's appreciated. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I talking about enemies, I don't know if you remember, there's like a little floating enemy that looks like sort of like a little bunny face, and if you blow air at it, if you're inflated and you blow air at it, they turn into like a little like they get enraged and their eyes go white and they come like chomping at you. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, the enemy design, like the rest of the game, is very very charming. It's got like a very I don't know. Again, it fits the world.
They're all unique. Every enemy has, or the ones that you want to suck in and it's like clothing and there's still an enemy underneath it.
Right, yeah, you can spit his clothing back at him, basically.
Yeah, it's like it catches you off guard. It's just done. It's very imaginative. It's done very well. They put a lot of time and effort, obviously, into making this just to be a very fun gaming experience.
It's pretty nifty. Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
You go right ahead.
Well, I was going to say, talking about the challenge is actually that seems to be where it's kind of a sticking point for us. As good as the game is, you felt that the game, being that it was too easy at the beginning, did you feel like the challenge kind of like ramped up too abruptly?
I do. Here's the thing. I don't think I beat the game fairly quickly. I probably beat it in 3 hours or less.
Okay.
And I just sat down and played it, and that's fine. It's 3 hours isn't, that's for a Nintendo game at this point, and to go through it, I mean, that's a pretty reasonable time to sit and beat a game. And it never got exceedingly difficult. I mean, some of the bosses I had to continue on every now and then, or I think not continue on, but you know what I mean. I had to.
Yeah, you died a few times.
Exactly. I honestly think I only continued once in this game. But,
well, that's a good segue into. I mean, with me, I felt that the difficulty was slow but steady.
I think it was non-existent and then ramped up really fast for like the last 3 levels.
I mean, yeah, I guess all things considered, I mean, there is, I don't know, like a basic, I guess, quote unquote challenge at the beginning of the game, just as far as whatever, like don't run into an enemy, don't die, don't jump into spikes or whatever. And another point for the game, spikes do not instantly kill you in this game. That's a rarity.
Right, yeah. And I guess for the most part, given the option that you can always pretty much for the first few levels pretty successfully fly around any obstacles, makes it easy. Gives you the option to make the game easy. So that's not always an option. In the later levels, you can't just successfully fly around everything and avoid everything. They make it to where shit's going to start hitting you. So
that's true, but I personally think that it was done gradually enough that I didn't really notice, I guess, like a difficulty increase. Like, to me, I thought that it was paced very well. It does start pretty much, completely, I mean, you're like you said, you're pretty much free to reign. But then by the end, the challenge comes in the form of not really repetition and experimentation and just trial and error, like Mega Man did. The challenge revolves around dexterity and agility and not always taking the high path and trying to float away from everything, because then you've got, spiky monsters up there trying to knock you out of the sky or whatever. So I actually liked that. However, I did get stuck. Where I continued was, I don't know how to describe this thing. Like a really frustrating fucking cloud boss that had an eye in the middle.
Yeah, where you have to keep jumping up and you keep flying up all the way up to the top level. It chases you around, and when you're flying up, I found that as it's chasing you when you go up, if while you're going up, if you like let your air out and sink for a little bit, he stops. And then, and then you can start flying up again, and then he catches.
Stubborn ass like half a dozen lives before I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm just gonna sit here. And it was like, oh, okay, if I sit here, then he backs. Old video game logic that I had so much experience with as a kid, which eluded me as an adult. It's like, oh, of course, he's got a pattern. Exploit it by doing the opposite. Don't try and fly away. Just fall back down.
Figure out that you have to jump into its eye.
You jumped into his eye?
That's how I killed him.
Really?
You suck those monsters that are on the clouds. That gives you the jumping effect where you just jump up really high. You can jump straight into that thing's eye, man, and it hits it. You don't get hit, really. You can even do it ahead of time when the lightning's coming down at you, and you'll hit it. Boom. And it knocks it off.
That's how you did it.
Yep. Yeah, it was actually pretty easy once I figured it out.
See,
he was frustrating at first. I died on him a couple times.
Yeah, what happened with me is, I mean, again, a little bit of a cheat, although it was kind of against me. I mean, it was a cheat that wasn't really in my favor. After I died at him several times, I just kind of like went back to an earlier save, which was like on, I think, like whatever it was, like the level before him, not the level, but whatever, the stage, however you want to put it. And I managed to pick up one of those cutter weapons that I like those boomerang blades or whatever. Yeah. And I managed to, once I'd known that thing had a pattern by that point, I retained that weapon onto that boss's stage, and I used that to take him down from afar.
Sure.
But even then, that took a good 5, because he has this pattern where he'll float and shoot lightning at you and then kind of like zip around and fly to the other side of the screen. And those boomerang things, that cutter, that does not traverse the entire length of the screen. So I had to really patiently just kind of like wait till he approached, hit him a few times, back off. If you sit in the far corner, he won't really be able to hit you, but you, of course, won't be able to hit him either. So for me, it was kind of like a long trial to actually take that thing down, because I didn't have that jumping ability. I didn't like want to lose the cutter and suck in those things that he was spitting.
Yeah, the jumping ability, I believe, is the ideal weapon for that boss.
Interesting. That would have probably made it easier for me. I mean, not that it was difficult, but I mean, that's an example to me of a good boss. It was challenging, but it was only challenging because I myself was too impatient to sit and learn his pattern at first.
You were able to beat him more than one way, too.
Indeed, yeah, which we obviously just determined. Yeah, that's pretty great.
So, yeah. Did you have a favorite level? I mean, we're getting pretty close to the... Actually, another thing I wanted to mention, actually, I thought of while you were talking, the little mini puzzles in the game where you go through a certain door and then you see, like, life somewhere. Like, if you go through the right door or find the right path or figure out how to get there, you can get one-ups and this and that. There was, like, little, like, secret doors and little, like... Do I want to take the time to even try to get that? I don't have to, or you can. You can try to figure out the little mini, like, the little puzzling way to find that route to go get that little trinket or the little life or the
like a health
or something. Exactly, yeah. So I kind of thought that was neat that there was those things mixed in that you didn't necessarily have to go for, but if you wanted to take the time to go do it, it was like a little reward for your efforts of figuring out the little path there.
Yeah, you're right. That's another little excursion that they added to the game. Instead of just going straight through from the beginning of the level to the end, you could often find these little diversionary doors or whatever that would be kind of like a little, extracurricular challenge where you could, as you said, get special items or whatever. And those escalated in difficulty as well. I thought that was cool. Like in the earlier stages, those are really easy to figure out. Often, there's nothing to figure out. There's just a secret entrance that leads you to a one-up or whatever. But later on in the game, there are actual challenges to where you have to figure out how to break some blocks, maybe suck an enemy and use a special...
Right, or have the right weapon, even be able to break a block or trigger a bomb or something,
Yeah. I thought that stuff was pretty cool. Though, to be fair, and I'll explain why momentarily, later, throughout the later portions of the game, I just kind of started ignoring those.
Yeah, I did too.
You too.
Because then, with all the mini, like I said, it gives you a lot of opportunities for one-ups and things like that. I just didn't need to go after them. It wasn't a concern of mine to get an extra life after a minute.
Sure. That's cool that they were there, though. It was nice that it's just another thing there for you to bolster your chances. I think
absolutely.
Yeah. You asked about favorite levels. Level design. We're going to start getting into the negatives a little bit now. To me, the level design was, I don't want to say inconsistent. yet it felt kind of random. The game is basically sort of a series of different rooms.
Yeah.
It's basically from left to right. Sometimes, you circle around and go right to left or whatever, but basically every world, again, we have like a world that's broken into stages or levels, whatever. Each of these levels is a series of like 5 or 6 different like long rooms, and the rooms were sometimes just totally different from one to the next. Like the block, the actual resources that they would use to actually,
Sure.
like in stage 1, not stage 1.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like in Mario Brothers, like you're in like the Sky World, and then all of a sudden, the level 1-2, you're in like underground. You're in a cave, and then the whole level's a cave, and then it's like a uniform. Where in this one, it just depending on you walk through a door, and it's just completely different.
Yeah, it's scattershot. Like an A level. I mean, again, just a random level. The blocks that you traverse or whatever. The walls that you go past. They'll be brown. They'll be blocky. They'll have certain patterns. The background will be, I don't know. Let's just say like a blue sky with clouds. And then as soon as you go to the next screen, you're like dealing with a bunch of like purple blocks, and you're underwater, and it's like it just seems kind of. Like the level design. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of hodgepodge. I mean, the levels are all well designed, but there's not really much of a flow from one screen to the next. That kind of disappointed me.
That being said, though, they're still all very pretty to look at.
Oh yeah, most of the levels, almost all of the levels, I would say pretty much all the levels, with the exception of, to me, I didn't really like some of the later stages, like the Orange Ocean or whatever. It's personal taste, but yeah, for the most part, there's so much to look at, so many colors. I mean, because it's a hodgepodge, you get like every color. This stage is purple. This stage is green. This stage has a beautiful sparkling ocean for background. This stage has like just trees.
For the 8-bit. They had the 8-bits they had to work with. They really make this game look as pretty as possible.
Mm-hmm. It's a very aesthetically pleasing game.
That being said, all the color options, all this and that, my very favorite level is the black and white level.
It was pretty cool, wasn't it? That was just such a surprise.
Done so well. The tones they used was like perfect black and white. You felt like you were watching an old black and white TV program or something.
For sure.
The shades they used were perfect. Obviously, Kirby was still pink, so it was just the contrast was neat. The music was fun. The music to me fit that whole color scheme for some reason. It just felt right. It was neat. It was almost like being in Pleasantville or something. It was just a cool.
Wow, that's a blast from the past. There you go. Sure.
Yeah, it was just, I really enjoyed that. It was just a little treat, and that was the only level like it. There was nothing, they didn't like throw that in again in the future or foreshadow it with anything. It was just, it was there. It was a neat little treat to me, and that for me, just the feeling I got playing through it wasn't necessarily the most difficult or the most fun level. It was my favorite level just because of how neat it looked and the music, and it just felt fun to play through. So.
And it really was a great surprise because it comes like almost at the very end of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, you felt like, okay, I'm getting somewhere now, kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like it was going places, which it didn't, it didn't, there's no continuity to it. It was fine, but it was cool. We're getting to the end of the game here. Well, we could probably start talking about the bigger bosses.
I'm trying to think. We had the I'm gonna forget all the different bosses we had. We had again like the guy that like sketched different drawings that would turn into different enemies, and then he'd skate to a different part of the level and do the same. We had that cloud with the eye in it. Oh God. How many bosses were there in the game? Probably 5, 6, something like that. I guess there's 7 worlds.
And there's like the different little mini-ish bosses halfway through here and there. There's a variety, nothing overwhelming.
And talking about, before I forget, talking about fighting the bosses and level design, as we both are. You mentioned the level where you go up and fight multiple bosses in a single like ascending tower.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're climbing this tower up to the top, and you go through pretty much every boss you had fought already.
Right, all like the second tier bosses, as I would personally describe them. That level reminds me of my favorite level, which is I don't even remember where it. There's so many things I'm forgetting because I didn't.
That's just it. Everything's named something. Everything. It's hard to keep track of everything in where it was in the game.
I believe it was in, let's say, level 2 to 3. It was around the early to middle of the game. It was a level to where as you run to the right, you're running around. The game has a 3-dimensional effect where you're running around the circumference of a tower. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That was actually very neat. Yeah, that was super cool. It was very ahead of its time, kind of a.
It really was. Yeah.
You didn't run into those kind of game physics on the NES. It was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty rad.
That was to me kind of like the first of the two, like special levels, like you mentioned the black and white level, which I agree was really awesome. Yeah, this to me, that scrolling around the tower, having the effect to where the tower actually looked as if it was moving as you moved around it. That was just, I don't know. Yeah, that was really great.
He also has like a Super Mario Brother-esque invincibility you can get, where like you're invincible for a while. I loved the invincibility music that he got for that.
That was pretty good. I did like that music.
It was rad. And you go running through and you just like knocking into enemies, and you're like, all of a sudden you're thrown, you're drug right back to Mario. You're like, I got to get through this fast. I'm invincible and kill shit.
And I like that it wasn't called in-game. It wasn't called like Star. It wasn't called Invincibility. It was called Hyper.
Yeah, he's Hyper. Exactly.
Too much sugar for this little pink marshmallow. Yeah, that was pretty great. Stuff like that was awesome. Yeah. Speaking of the, actually that's something that I wanted to bring up. You see stuff like this, like the little thing that says Hyper. You see this in a little, not even little. In fact, that's kind of part of the complaint. You see it in a little, God, I'm tripping over myself. It's not little, but it's little. Let's keep repeating that. You have a bar. You have a HUD at the bottom of the screen that actually, in all fairness, takes up probably a good 25% of the screen. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
I mean, did that like stand out to you, or did you just kind
of... it didn't. It was easy to just. It just became normal.
It's kind of a lot of games that have done that because like Wolfenstein on the Super Nintendo, for example, or Doom for the same system, they had a large HUD to kind of reduce how much actually on-screen action they had to present at one time. It was sort of like a little bit of a sneak, a little bit of a trick.
Sure. A safeguard so the gameplay wouldn't slow down.
Sure.
Yeah, I actually got. I guess one thing I should comment on too. As much as that is going on in this, I only had it bogged down on maybe once or twice. I did not have a whole lot of bogging down where everything got slow or like overwhelmed with everything that was happening on the screen. And there was quite a bit happening on the screen through quite a bit of the game.
That actually happened to me on several occasions. I'm surprised. That actually, yeah.
It didn't happen to me too much. Not as much as like Mega Man. I mean, obviously it's the only game we've reviewed so far besides this, so it's easy to go back and compare it to Mega Man. It happened to me quite a bit during Mega Man. It did not happen to me that often on this game.
In general, that is Nintendo Entertainment System and NES affliction. That and flicker, those are kind of like two of the common complaints that games used to get back then.
Which the flicker's terrifying because back in the day, your game would just freeze out of the blue very frequently when you'd see that flicker.
Sometimes it depends on the game. Definitely.
Yeah, but every time I see that flicker, I'm just like, oh fuck! I'm like, I'm too far in this game for this to freeze. God damn it!
Yeah, that didn't happen to me in Kirby, but the slowdown did in a few spots. In one of the sky levels later on near the end of the game with the UFOs and everything else, just like I would run past the UFO, fly, whatever, get past several of the UFOs. So I'd have 3 or 4 of them chasing me. Then I'd have like a little spiky thing kind of wandering towards me. And there were just like 7 different animate things on the screen at once. So I sort of brought it on myself, by not stopping and killing every enemy. I just had so many things on the screen at once that sort of invited it. But yeah, it did happen a few times.
Yeah. Like I said, a couple for me, but not as much as I would expect with as much that's going on in this game.
It seems like they really did. I mean, they knew their way around the technology by this time. They really, obviously, as we've said several times now, they put a lot of time and effort into this game. And part of it wasn't just making it pretty and creative. Part of it was, I think, really kind of, knowing their way around how to make the game technically, proficient.
Sure.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, for me, again, getting more into the bad stuff, I hate to say this, and it's going to sound like kind of like a left field thing, but as much as I've observed what's good about the game, I honestly started getting kind of pretty bored with it by about maybe the third hour.
Yeah.
I put in probably a total of a little bit longer than you did, I think. I put in, I'd guess, maybe probably around 4 hours, I think, split between the 3 nights. And that last hour, while I wasn't frustrated like I was with Mega Man, just like, fuck this, I'm so done. I did, however, feel like, just
it's
the same. Yeah, it's a good game. It's a creative game. It's a very versatile game. But I'd be lying if I didn't say it's a repetitive game.
Sure, it is. As are most of those games back then. When it's just with everything it gives you to do, there's only so much you can do. It's just.
Well, it's as I sat here thinking this. I mean, because in my notes, they're all pretty positive, but I was much more effusive at the beginning, and why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't I be? I was new to this.
Yeah,
There's a lot of surprises.
You're immersing yourself in this world and everything involved in it. And,
Sure.
But at this point, you're an old hand at it, and
yeah,
kind of.
It just seemed like I'm kind of surprised that I found myself honestly thinking, well, I mean, geez, as these notes progress, as my time with the game gets further, I'm finding myself thinking I don't want to think that the game is too long, because normally I would, as a kid I wouldn't have thought that. As a kid, I'm sure I would have loved this. It's like, oh my God, it's so long, so many levels. Yeah, so I mean, it's like I wonder, is that really just age, or is it just is this game just kind of really repetitive after a while?
So it's safe to say you won't be purchasing any of the DLC for this game.
The 1993 DLC.
Yeah, but
yeah, I don't know. Well,
okay, then let's just get to it, man. What did you think about the bosses? The two end bosses.
Yeah, the end bosses. Well, I guess technically three, because the final boss, there's two forms. But the first boss, the first end boss is King Dedede himself.
Right.
And he was the trickiest boss, and reasonably so. Again, like with the other bosses, it's cool that it takes you a while to kind of get down his pattern, and he has more patterns available to him. He'll rush and try and tackle you.
Yeah, he'll switch it up. It almost. I don't want to say he learns how you're playing, but it seemed like it for a second.
Yeah, it almost kind of did.
It seemed like there wasn't an absolute pattern. It seemed like his patterns, he had a set of different patterns, but they were more random. Like they didn't cycle through the same way every time.
Yeah, had I been stuck on him for a while, I may have been able to interpret whether it was random or, in fact, dynamic and based on what I was doing. Sure. But, during the little bit of time that I was on him, it did seem randomized. It seemed like I couldn't quite always predict what he was going to do. Right. I was surprised that I actually beat him on my first try.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like Dr. Wily from Mega Man. It was almost kind of like he was a little bit of a breather.
And except that once you realized it wasn't over, there was almost a breath of fresh air. It was like, oh, good. It shouldn't have been this easy. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, relatively speaking, because I didn't have as difficult of a time with him as I did as, the Cloud Boss or whatever, for example, I wouldn't personally call him easy, although I would say that he was easier to learn, easier to eventually come out. Yeah, for me at least, anyway.
Well, when at this point, I'm thinking this is the end battle.
Sure.
So I'm not thinking there's another battle with him, nor am I thinking there's even another guy besides him. So at that point, I thought it was quite easy for thinking that was the final battle of the game.
Yeah, and then the game kind of suddenly turns into like a space shooter for a minute.
Yeah, which was actually really fun.
Yeah, it was out of left field, and it was fun.
Yeah, you're zipping, and you're just like choo, and dodging shit. It was great. Actually, it broke up the monotony. There you go. It just goes against everything seemed the same. Well, there you go. They fed you a spoonful of something different right there.
And I very much appreciated that, actually. Yeah, because it was so unexpected. And before I
have to admit, it perked me right up. It got me back into the game again. It did.
Woke you up out of the funk a little bit.
Sure.
But before it does that, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the cutscene where after you defeat King Dedede, he. Do you remember that little animation to where you're running off to go, claim you're going to get the star rod or whatever it is? King Dedede is holding onto your leg and shaking his head no, don't do it. Do you remember that?
I do.
And then after you do your thing or whatever, and the nightmare monster breaks out and flies off, you both Kirby and King Dedede kind of run back and forth in place having a shit fit.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fantastic.
A cute little animation, to where they're both just screaming with their hands in the air, oh God, no, this is the worst possible outcome. That kind of stuff is really cool. That happens just before it turns into a crazy space shooter, and I thought that was pretty great. So I actually died the first time on that space ball thing. I did too. I died. Oh, you did? Space. Did you say you did die?
Yeah, zipping through space. Yeah, I did die.
I didn't realize that it's kind of on a timer, kind of like an invisible timer. If you don't hit him enough times just before he's
gone, yeah.
Yeah, and you just...
That's exactly how I died.
Sure, same here, yeah. Yeah, but on the second try, I finished him. He's difficult, but he is, I guess, kind of time-consuming. But whatever, after you finish him, the first time, then he turns into this, whatever, just generic nightmare monster, I suppose. I don't know. What did you think of that? What did you think of the final?
I thought he was neat looking. Actually, I wasn't expecting it. I kind of thought it was cool for a nightmare monster. I guess. I mean, it's somebody's interpretation of what a nightmare monster might be. It kind of looked a little Dracula-esque for me, which is fine by me. I'm a fan of Dracula. I'm a fan of most of the Universal monsters, but it was a blatant Dracula ripoff kind of a deal. So it's whatever. Everybody does it. It was cool. It was fine by me. I thought he was a fun boss. He was a little tricky for me. I died on him a couple times, to be honest with you. He probably took me a good 4 or 5 times, honestly. To get his pattern down, and realize when I should just sit still, actually. That's really what I learned with him was, I'm trying too hard. I really I just need to slow down and let him move around and then just go up and hit him when I need to hit him. So...
I had, I think, more of the, about the same kind of reaction that you did. Having played a lot of the Castlevania games, I also was, I mean, you couldn't not be, but, I was particularly reminded of Dracula. His fighting pattern was kind of similar to some of the kind of monster fights that I've seen in games, again, like Castlevania. Sure. His design was okay. I liked him all right. Again, it was a change.
It's neat that he's Dracula in space. That's kind of fun.
I mean, when you think about it, a space vampire is fucking. I mean, that's 80s right there.
That's is nightmarish, I guess. I'm lost in space with vampires. God, fuck.
Lost in Space with Vampires. That would have been a much better show.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god.
I thought I saw that on Svengoolie the other night.
That's a thing. Lost in Space with Vampires.
No, I'm being hyperbolic.
I would have bought it. I would have accepted it.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I watched this is a subject for another time, but briefly, I watched a show called Spectre Man growing up.
Yeah.
It's a Japanese show from the 70s that was, it was basically Power Rangers well before Power Rangers.
More similar to Ultraman.
What's that?
It's pretty similar to Ultraman kind of a deal.
Yeah, pretty much. If I recall correctly, I think Ultraman came first, but regardless. So Spectre-Man had a different monster pretty much every other episode of his 62 or 64 episode run, and one of them was a rad, horrifying, just monstrous space vampire, like a legit vampire from space, and it was horrifying. It was great. Good stuff. Yeah, so I was thinking of that a little bit when I was fighting him. So, yeah.
Well, this is a Japanese-made game, and perhaps that's where their inspiration came from.
I don't know if Spectre-Man was really that popular, but it'll make me feel happier to think that that's the case, so I'll give it that Phantom credit. Why not? Sure. Yeah, so you finished the space, Nightmare, I guess, is literally just what he's called. He's called, I think, Nightmare or Nightmare Boss, whatever. And kind of a little bit of a twist. It turns out that King Dedede was actually trying to keep from retrieving these different items to unlock the Nightmare King or whatever. He wasn't trying to interfere with you because he's your enemy. He was actually trying to save the same world that you're trying to save.
Exactly, yeah. And then,
that was pretty nifty.
Yeah. You know what? Good story, good game, good fun. Again, I agree with you. You get a little sick of it after a while, but I gotta say, man, for this game and when it came out and what we had available for the NES at that time, or pretty much you had at this point when this game came out, you pretty much had anything noteworthy available on the NES, and this one stands out amongst all those awesome titles. It really does. It
did a lot of things right. It did well more things correctly than it did poorly.
When I was looking into we were going to do this game, I kind of looked at some reviews on it. It gets I've never seen this game get a bad review or a low score or a low grade on anything, and it's worthy of everything it gets. And
see, now that's actually something that I would personally take issue. I shouldn't say take issue with, but disagree with a little bit. I too did the same, and I've seen this game basically described as kind of a masterpiece, like everywhere across the board. Yeah, I consider this like an just an absolute apex top quality AAA game. While I wouldn't necessarily dispute any of that in principle, I guess, like I can see why people would think that. I personally think that maybe it's overrated a little bit. I respect it more than I like it, and that's not to say I don't like it. I just don't thoroughly love it the way so many other people seem to have.
Sure, I can see why if this was a game I played as a kid, why I would adore it. It would probably be one of my favorite games ever.
I wonder about that. I wonder about that because I am so removed from having been a kid when I played games like this. I wonder. I mean, this seems like the kind of.
Can you imagine, man, the kind of shitty games me and you were entertained by as kids?
We were entertained by some great games.
We were, but there were some games we settled for, man. That just seemed great at the time, and in hindsight, I couldn't play them now. They're terrible.
Well, this is absolutely not a settle for game. That much
no,
we can.
Exactly.
Yeah, this game conjures up to me memories of. I don't think you played this one. You might have. Little Nemo, the Dream Master from Capcom.
Yeah, I played that.
You did.
A little bit,
Played.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that game, kind of like a combination of that game and a little bit of Mario 3, maybe.
Sure,
and,
absolutely.
In my opinion, those are both really quality games to pull from.
Absolutely,
so, yeah. Again, ultimately, yeah, I probably would have loved it as a kid. I can't say that I love it now, but I did very much enjoy it. I think it's a great game. I would never, tell anybody not to play it. It just... So to me, the novelty kind of wore off after the first couple of hours.
If you had to give this game, taking everything into consideration, when it came out, what system it was on, what ability they had to do with designing this game, what they had to work with, the fun you had, the all that stuff, and let's say a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate it?
Well, that's the thing. I've been thinking about wanting to give ratings to these games because I like to kind of, to be able to kind of place them against one another and, just sort of like see, where the true Hallmark games stand in our opinion. Based on, my opinion of how it would be, my score for how I enjoyed it now would probably have to be different than a score of objective how much I would have liked it as a kid and so forth.
Don't even factor it because that's just you can't really know how you would have liked it as a kid.
It's tough though because you bring up a very good point. There's nothing about this game that I think I would have disliked as a kid at all. But I'm so. Sure. Like my standards now. I hate to be this guy, but my standards are so different now as an adult, and naturally so.
Absolutely. I guess you just. I would really have to weigh the console it was on, compared with what was available on that console. All that stuff has to come into factor. If this game was on the PlayStation 2, it would be terrible. Actually, I can't even say it would be terrible.
It'd still be fun.
If it looked this way, it would be terrible. The gameplay would still be fun.
Objectively speaking, if I were to give it a score based on what it is, I would have to say it's a 9. Now, how much? But now, however, my feeling from having played it, the official score I want to give it,
the official Miketheratguy's list of where this ends up in his world.
Yes, exactly. Compared to some of the absolute godlike games I've played, I couldn't compare it to them, of course.
Right.
So to me, I would give it a high but not masterpiece score of probably, let's say, 7.5.
There you go. I give it an 8. I give it a solid 8 either way. I give it a solid 8 on my list. I give it a solid 8 with taking everything into consideration of the time of conception and when it came out and what they had to work with. I don't honestly, the bad things I have to say about it are so nitpicky that it's fantastic. If you've never played it, run out and play it. You will at least have a lot of fun, if not fun the whole time.
Well, that's just it. I couldn't imagine anybody actually playing this game, even now, like you and I, somebody who's never played it before, sitting down and saying, I just hate this game. I can't stand what this is. I couldn't see anybody doing that. It's just well done for what it is.
Agreed. Okay.
Yeah. So we've got a 7.5 and an 8. I would like to personally go back and do Mega Man, give that a retroactive score of, I'd say have to give that a 6.5.
Yeah. I'm going a little bit lower.
Really?
Even though my critique wasn't as negative as yours, I gotta give it a 6. I gotta give it a 6 where it's at. I had fun. 6 isn't a terrible score. I would have to say the vast majority of NES games would probably get a 3 or lower for me. So a 6 is not a terrible score. So if I had to go back and do Mega Man...
It comes down to how much you personally enjoyed it. And if you just, you might not have felt the negative effects of Mega Man as much as I did, or at least weren't as bothered by them. But comparatively to the other games you've played, if fun level was, just a 6, it's just a 6, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I don't know. Kirby's Adventure, again, they knew what they were doing. The guy, one of the people who worked on this, obviously we talked about a couple of the people who worked on it earlier, but Satoru Iwata, he produced the game. He was one of the producers, and I don't know if you know this or not, but he's actually the current president of Nintendo.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the guys who worked...
Look where his hard work and innovation got him.
That's absolutely true, exactly. Yeah, this game is so well-renowned, and Shigeru Miyamoto is also one of the other producers. He, of course, invented Mario and Zelda and Donkey Kong. I mean, he's
overrated. I'm just kidding. That's, yeah, he's a fucking genius when it comes to video games. Absolutely. He really is.
Yeah, so, I mean, this game's got a high pedigree. This game is just a quality game, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, do you want to pull the old lever and see what they have in store for us next week?
You want me to go yank the rod of the game?
I keep referring to next week. You know, it's bi-weekly. It's whatever it is. It's when we get to it. Next episode.
It's the game that we'll be playing next week.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah, now let me elaborate here before I cut myself off with that. Yank the rod of the game drop 628473.
Rip that fucking lever, Mikey.
Let's go. Aha! The Secret of Monkey Island.
The Secret of Monkey Island.
The Secret of Monkey Island.
I have never played The Secret of Monkey Island. Have you played The Secret of Monkey Island?
I don't want to oversell it, but I've played it many times because I adore it.
Okay.
Yeah, this will be an interesting one because this will be the first one that not the first actually. That's right.
Is this on PlayStation?
Yeah, we should specify. It will be for the Sega CD.
Sega CD. Is this the only platform it was available on?
It actually began on, was it DOS or the Commodore 64? It was a computer game. This was back before I ever owned a computer, so this was like cutting edge back when I first heard about it.
Sure.
Yeah, Sega CD is the only console, the only,
Is it like an action adventure? Is it
a point-and-click game.
A point-and-click game?
Yeah, indeed, a point-and-click.
Elaborate. What exactly is a point-and-click game?
A point-and-click game basically was popularized in the I shouldn't say early, but around the mid-'80s. Basically, you guide your character around and interact with his environment, not through direct control pad movement, but you have a user interface composed of verbs and actions. And what you do is you use your cursor to pick one of those actions, you point at it, and you click, and you say, for example, you hover over the word open. You click that. That forms a sentence that says open, and then you complete the sentence by clicking on the door in front of your character. Open door. And so therefore he opens the door. Yeah, it's kind of like a novel, sort of like, it bridges the gap between the old text parser games where it would be like, you're in front of a house. You can go left or right. What do you want to do?
So it's basically I don't want to say modern because obviously it's not modern, but an evolved choose-your-own-adventure story?
Not, I don't want to build it up to be anything it's not. Not really so much a choose your... It's flexible. You have a lot of choices at your disposal. It's all about exploration and freedom.
Do these choices wind you up dead until you make the right choices, or do these choices land you, there's more than one potential finish to the game kind of a deal?
You see, now, Maniac Mansion was really great about that. In Maniac Mansion, while you could die, for the most part it was all about exploration. Maniac Mansion gave you, I think, around 10 to 12 different endings, depending on what you did.
Okay.
The Secret of Monkey Island has only one ending, unfortunately, but there it is. However, Maniac Mansion, they actually kind of like really, the creator, Ron Gilbert, who's a hero of mine, I love that guy, he and a few others, Tim Schafer, for example, they created a game with Monkey Island, where they encouraged exploration without the fear of death. There are very, very few ways to die in Monkey Island, and you almost like have to knowingly abandon common sense and choose to kill yourself. So they don't punish you for exploration and fucking around.
Everybody ends up at the same destination. They just don't care how you get there.
Yeah, pretty much. Although that implies that there are multiple paths through the game, like a lot of different. It's so hard to explain without really giving away too much of the game.
I will find out for myself.
You will find out. You'll find out, and I think that you'll have a good time doing it.
It sounds promising. Looking at it here, it's a LucasArts game.
Absolutely, 1990, I believe.
Looks very Goonies-ish to me. That's cool.
It's got some Goonies. It's a pirate adventure through and through.
Pirate adventure. Well,
funny,
I'm
goofy,
down for an old scallywag.
Yeah, it's a good time. It really is a good time. It's a fun game. Whether you like it or not, I can't imagine that you won't chuckle.
Well, there you have it, folks. Kirby's Adventure.
Good game. Very good game.
Next week we'll be playing The Adventures of Monkey Island.
The Secret of Monkey Island. The secret will be the adventure.
There we go. The Secret of Monkey Island. That'll be on the Sega CD. Guys, if you enjoyed what you heard, last week, you can look us up on Podomatic.com. We have a page on there. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. You have something to say to us, some of the questions, a request, anything like that. The Contra Code Podcast at gmail.com. Shoot us an email. We'll try to get back to you. So far, we've been really overwhelmed with emails just pouring in, so we're trying to get back at you one at a time, but, how's the forum coming? Are we going to have a forum soon?
I wanted to be able to say that, yes, our forum is up and running, but there's a it's a noob issue, I suppose, but in designing this forum, I'm really kind of having trouble getting our logo formatted correctly to where it shows up nicely on the page, and that's just really sticking with me. I just want it to look good, and most people would probably not care, but I do. So,
sure.
Yeah, putting on those damn final touches.
You know what, I imagine by the end of next week we'll have it up, huh?
Sometime this decade, the forum will be available.
Okay, well, there you have it. I imagine pretty quickly, too, we're going to be available on YouTube.com, which will be the Contra Code Podcast on YouTube.com. So look for us there. If you don't quite see us there, that's a place you can go and please, if you listen to us and you enjoyed us, give us a rating, give us a nice little review on iTunes. That'll help get the word out. That'll help us, get the ball rolling on this. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. You guys have a good week. See you later.
Take it easy, everybody. See you next time.
Yep. Bye-bye.